Chapter 22, Give it a try. What kind of test? His nephew's Deshang realm's wind-chasing sword art was enough to shock Qin Xianhe. Now the other party actually said that he would kill this late first-order demon snake. How could Qin Xianhe believe it? Is trying to discourage. The roar of the black-robed old man resounded in everyone's ears again. Be careful, everyone, this beast is about to get out of trouble. The voice just fell. On the snake body erected by the blood-spotted sea snake, the ice layer gradually cracked, and the ice chips fell on the sea surface, sputtering huge splashes of water. Hiss! The blood-spotted sea snake broke out with a terrifying neigh. Everyone only felt a cold air rushing to their foreheads, and Qin Xianhe even discovered that the second-level chi-refining cultivator with the lowest cultivation level among the people was frightened by the power of this demonic snake and shivered. It's over. The black-robed old man screamed in his heart. But no matter how unwilling he is, at this moment there is only one way to escape. The blood-spotted sea snake shook its huge body, and countless ice chips either fell into the sea water or landed on the frozen sea, and the impact made a thumping sound. Seeing, this monster snake is about to get out of trouble. When everyone is desperate. A sword light pierced the sky. The whole body of this sword is snow-white, and the sword glow is nearly 10 feet wide. Even if they are separated by a distance of several hundred meters, everyone can feel the cold aura and terrifying power emanating from this flying sword. The sword glow is 9 feet. The first-order high-grade flying sword. Is this a first-order high-grade magic weapon? It's dead, the snake is dead. Die. Die. Ha! When the black-robed old man saw this sword, there was a sense of fear in his heart. Obviously, the power of this sword is enough to threaten his life. Now. Chen Daoxian only felt that the air in front of Feijian became extremely thick, as if something was preventing him from exerting all the power of Feijian. It's just that this feeling is fleeting. In the eyes of others, the flying snow sword is not only terrifying, but also as fast as a rainbow. Compared to them, Chen Daoxian's flying sword was more than twice as fast. This is also the performance of wind-chasing sword art after reaching the culmination level. Not only did the speed of flying the sword double after the sword, but the power increased by nearly 70%. The first-order high-grade Fei Shui sword, coupled with the wind-chasing sword art, which increases the power of the Fei Jian by 70%, created an amazing sword at the moment. Hiss! In the face of this sword, the blood-spotted sea snake that erected its snake body also felt a fatal threat, and I saw it twisting the snake body desperately, trying to avoid the edge of the flying snow sword. But it had just escaped from the ice-binding technique of the black-robed old man, and its body was still stiff at the moment, and the speed of the flying snow sword was too fast to allow it to dodge at all. Laugh! It sounded like a hot knife had cut through butter. The blood-spotted sea snake, which was more than 20 feet in length and about 10 feet in diameter, was cut off by Chen Daoxian's sword. Seeing this scene, the black-robed old man was stunned for a moment, then overjoyed. After taking a sip of his dantian qi, he immediately performed the ice-binding technique again, freezing the remnant of the monster snake that was swaying indiscriminately because of the loss of its head. After half a cup of tea. As the last trace of the demon snake's vitality disappeared under the erosion of the ice-binding technique, the sea finally calmed down again. Do you died? The second-floor chi-refining cultivator with the lowest cultivation base asked cautiously. Died. Qin Xianhe nodded, then looked at Qin Daoxian, who was pale, with a complicated look on his face. Great. Finally dead. Dead, finally dead. Ha, we succeeded, midair. Except for the cultivator whose cargo ship was destroyed with a drooping face, everyone else cheered and rejoiced. After all, getting rid of the blood-spotted sea snake means not only the preservation of one's own cargo ship, but also an unexpected harvest. As a late-stage first-order monster, this blood-spotted sea snake can be said to be full of treasures. On the corpse left behind, in addition to the most precious inner pill and poison sac, snake meat can be used for eating, snake teeth can be used to create special instruments, and snake skin can be sewn into close-fitting defensive soft armor. Just now everyone was so focused on the firepower that they couldn't cause too much damage to this monster snake, and the snake skin accounted for at least 80% of the credit. Although the snake skin has been damaged a lot after being devastated by everyone, it is not a problem to sew into a few body-fitting soft armor. After the black-robed old man moved the corpse of the demon snake to his ship, he invited everyone to board his cargo ship. When everyone heard his invitation, they raised their spirits. Everyone knows that the time has come to divide the spoils. The cargo ship of the black-robed old man was 3 times larger than the Chen family's Canglong, and the formation patterns on the ship were much more than the Canglong. No wonder the black-robed old man was so nervous about his cargo ship. The crowd thought to themselves. Everyone. The black-robed old man didn't know what everyone was thinking. He was usually taciturn and his face was rosy at the moment, and he was obviously very satisfied with the results of this battle. According to the Division of Military Exploits in the Qianyuan Sword Sect, those who directly kill the enemy account for the main credit, and can enjoy 60% of the spoils. The black-robed old man looked around, and finally set his eyes on Chen Daoxian. Rather than saying that he was asking everyone's opinions, it would be better to say that he was asking Chen Daoxian's opinions. After all, this is a world of immortal cultivation where the strong are respected. The strength Chen Daoxian had just burst out was enough for the black-robed old man to face him squarely. Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads. It's all up to the seniors. That's it. Seeing that everyone had no disagreement, the black-robed old man took out 100 spirit stones from the storage bag and distributed 20 spirit stones to each of the 5 Qinxianhe. This snake demon corpse is barely worth 1,000 spirit stones. The 5 of you occupy 10%, that is, 20 spirit stones per person. Please count them. The black-robed old man arched his hands. In the crowd, except for the cultivator whose cargo ship was destroyed, the rest of the cultivators, especially the second-level qi refining cultivator, were all smiling. Obviously, 20 spirit stones were a lot of money for him, a second-level qi refining cultivator. After everyone put the spirit stone into the storage bag, they bid farewell to the black-robed old man. One by one, they sent everyone away, and the black-robed old man looked at Chen Daoxian. Fellow Taoist, let's meet again. It seems that the junior and the senior are still very faithful. Chen Daoxian smiled and said that he didn't hear the black-robed old man automatically upgrade his title from little friend to Taoist friend. The black-robed old man also laughed and said, don't lie to fellow Taoists, this time the old man has a ruthless request. Senior, please speak. I want to use the spirit stone to counteract the inner pill and poison sac of the demon snake. How about friendship? After thinking about it, Chen Daoxian nodded, yes, but I don't want the spirit stone. I wonder if the seniors still have the water spirit beads that sold me today. It seems that Chen Daoxian would ask this question. After all, although Chen Daoxian's strength is strong, his cultivation is only 3 levels of qi refining. For him, the Shui Lingzhu, which can accelerate the improvement of cultivation, is naturally more attractive than other foreign objects. But for the black-robed old man, the water spirit beads are a bit tasteless. He is now at the 9th level of qi refining. Unless he can break through to the foundation establishment stage, these treasures that improve his cultivation will have no effect on him. There are 5 water spirit beads here, the price is 500 spirit stones, and the remaining 100 spirit stones. How about giving this demon snake meat to fellow Taoists? The black-robed old man took out 5 marble-sized water beads and said, Okay. Chen Daoxian nodded in agreement. Negotiate the loot division. The next step is to deal with the corpse of the snake demon. The 3 of them are monks, and the speed of disposing of the snake demon's corpse is very fast. In just 1 stick of incense, the snake demon is skinned and fleshed out. The snake meat and 5 water spirit beads belonged to Chen Daoxian, and the snake skin, snake teeth, poison sac, and inner pill belonged to the black-robed old man. Chapter 23, Cargo Ship Deck. After experiencing the common defense against the enemy and the distribution of the spoils, the relationship between the three became visibly familiar to the naked eye. Chen Daoxian smiled and cupped his hands. Chen Daoxian, the younger generation of the Chen family in Changping County, Shuanghu Island. This is my uncle Chen Xianhe. I don't know the senior's name. Old Wei Sihai, I have seen 2 fellow Taoists. The black-robed old man Wei Sihai formally bowed to the 2 of them. Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian hurriedly returned the salute. Fellow Taoist Wei is welcome. Chen Xianhe put on a flattered look. He knew in his heart that if it wasn't for Chen Daoxuan's face, the other party probably wouldn't take him, the 6th-level chi-refining cultivator, in his eyes. After being polite, the relationship between the 2 sides became more harmonious. C. Chen Daoxian couldn't help but inquire about the rental and sale of shops in Sangxiafang City. Compared with Chen's uncle and nephew, Wei Sihai, who has been in Sangxiafang City all the year round, obviously knows the specific situation of Sangxiafang City better than them. Really? After listening to Chen Daoxuan's narration, Wei Sihai frowned, shook his head and said, I advise fellow Taoists not to break up the store in Xiufang City. Why is this? Chen Xianhe on the side frowned. Wei Sihai looked at Chen Daoxian, then at Chen Xianhe, and explained, to tell the truth from the 2 fellow Taoists, the Cultivation Island where I am is also considered to have some spiritual mineral resources, but the old man has not yet opened a shop in Sangxiafang City. Do you 2 know why? Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe looked at each other, cupped their hands and said, I also ask seniors for advice. I can't talk about advice. The black-robed old man Wei Sihai waved his hand. The scattered repair shop in Guang'an Prefecture is different from the core business district. Most of the customers here are the children of scattered repairers and small families, and their purchasing power is weak. If you open a shop, the cost of goods will skyrocket. That being the case, why don't the scattered cultivators choose to buy on the pavement? As an old bird who has been in the Sangxiafang City all the year round, Wei Sihai's words can be said to be extremely sincere. If it wasn't for Chen Daoxuan's extraordinary potential and his intention to make friends, he would not have been so dissuaded. Hearing these words, combined with Chen Daoxuan's own market research on Sangxiafang City, he knew that Wei Sihai did not talk nonsense. It's just that Chen Sihai didn't know that he was an artifact refiner, and he didn't even know that he possessed an inter-era magical tool like the Rongling furnace. Think for a moment. Chen Daoxian decided to tell part of the truth. To be honest, this junior happens to be an artifact refiner, so he wants to open a magic artifact shop in Sangxiafang City. Friend Taoist is a refiner. The black-robed old man was stunned for a moment, and then his face became suspicious. Seeing that Wei Sihai was suspicious, Chen Daoxian did not explain, but showed a fire control technique in front of him. Fire control was one of the only 2 spells Chen Daoxian had mastered before he came to Guang'an Mansion, and he had long since cultivated to the realm of Deshang. I saw Chen Daoxuan's palm. The flames change into various forms, ranging from common cats and dogs to various birds and beasts. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's skilled fire control, Wei Sihai immediately believed 90% in his heart. Because apart from the alchemist and the alchemist, no one can master the fire control technique so skillfully. After all, cultivating the fire control technique is of no use to the increase of strength, but will consume a lot of energy. Except for the alchemist and the alchemist, no cultivator would be able to practice this spell. Fellow Taoist is actually an artifact refiner, disrespectful and disrespectful. If it was said that Wei Sihai just wanted to make friends with Chen Daoxian, then his attitude towards him now has a faint taste of flattery. After all, in the loose cultivator group, artifact refiners and alchemists are too rare. This kind of special talent is generally only capable of being cultivated by big families and sections. And on weekdays, the major forces protect them very closely, and ordinary loose cultivators simply cannot contact such people. It's just that Wei Sihai's character has always been more restrained, and he clearly wanted to say something flattering, but in the end, only a dry disrespect. Qin Daoxian didn't care about this either. He revealed the secret of his artifact refiner in order to let Wei Sihai, an old bird from the loose cultivation city, introduce him to a reliable shop. Really? After learning the identity of Qin Daoxian's craftsman, Wei Sihai introduced the shop information he had in detail. In the end, he clapped his chest and said, "Don't worry, the two fellow Taoists. I'll introduce the shop owner to the two of you when we return to Fengshe later. This matter is covered by me. So, thank you seniors. Fellow Taoist is too polite." Just as a few people were talking, the battlefield on the distant front seemed to have a new change. Frontline battlefield. After the disciples of the Zhou family defeated the monsters and beasts, the mere people who were not reconciled to the defeat went off in person and launched an attack on the Zhou family. Thanks to the cultivator's amazing eyesight, and Qin Daoxian's condescension. Even if they were separated by hundreds of miles, they could clearly see the appearance of those mermaids. As recorded in ancient books, the appearance of the merman is almost the same as that of the human race, and the males of the merman race are exceptionally strong, with exposed muscles, which emit a bronze luster under the sunlight. The female sharks are beautiful and lovable, all of them are beautiful beauties. Of course. The premise is not to look below them. The mermen, regardless of gender, lost their human characteristics from the waist down, but instead kept a fish tail that was about 10 feet long. Seeing this scene, Wei Sihai couldn't help but sigh with emotion. It is said that the mere people have the blood of their ancestors. I didn't believe it before, but now that I see their appearance, it is not completely groundless. Qin Daoxian doesn't care about whether he is a mermaid or a mermaid. Now he is only thinking about opening the shop in Sangxiafang City, and then letting Qin Xianhe sit in the shop. Then he went home to establish a workshop for refining tools, mass-produced magic tools, and used the productivity of industrialization to plunder the wealth of Wan Xinghai. As for the war between the shark and the Zhou family, who cares? Not to mention that the Zhou family easily crushed the incoming mermen. Even if the Zhou family couldn't win, wouldn't there be a prefecture above it? The state city has been defeated, and there is also the Qianyuan sword sect. In this world, the human race is the absolute overlord. In addition, neither monsters nor aliens can compete with the human monks. Otherwise, if there is a common foreign enemy, Qianyuan Jianzong will not fight to death with Azumo for 400 years. Conversation room. In the merman group, a middle-aged merman with an extremely strong figure and a resolute face stepped out of the group on the waves. Opposite. A handsome young man in a white robe with a face like a crown of jade stood in front of him. The man in white is tall and straight, with a 3-foot-long sword on his back, standing in the air. Even though he was separated by hundreds of miles, Qin Daoxian could feel the indifferent aura emanating from the other party's body, as if he had been banished to the world. Who is that? Hearing this, Wei Sihai had a complicated look on his face. Guang'an Sword Immortal Zhou Mubai. Chapter 24. Is he Zhou Mubai? For the name Zhou Mubai, Qin Daoxian can be described as thunderous. Not only him, the name Zhou Mubai is well known in the entire Guang'an mansion, and even in the hearts of the younger generation of cultivators in Wan Xinghai. At the age of 21, he established a foundation, and in less than 50 years, he broke through to the Zifu period and became a Zifu cultivator who was less than 100 years old. You must know that the lifespan of the cultivator of the Zifu is 500 years. This also means that Zhou Mubai has more than 400 years to break through the golden core stage. If nothing else, Zhou Mubai is very likely to break through the Jindan stage, and he is also known as the most promising cultivator in Guang'an Prefecture to become a Jindan real person in the past 500 years. Not only that. The real strength of Zhou Mubai is that he is a cultivator on the Tianjiao ranking of the Purple Mansion in Wangxinghai. The Zifu Tianjiao list is one of the lists set up by Qianyuan Jianzong to fight against Izumo. There are 3 complete lists, namely, the Foundation Establishment Hidden Dragon list, the Zifu Tianjiao list, and the Jindan Real Person list. In Qin Daoxuan's view, what Qianyuan Jianzong did was just to capture the cultivator's desire to be famous. In Wanxinghai, the largest group of cultivators were loose cultivators, and the second largest group of cultivators were the children of the major cultivators. Although Qianyuan Jianzong is the ruler of Wanxinghai, it is impossible for all monks to fight to the death on the battlefield with a single order. Therefore, Qianyuan Jianzong came up with a way to attract monks to the battlefield with fame and fortune. Shuanghu Island's Chen family relied on the military merits to exchange from the Qianyuan Jianzong's inheritance of the refining equipment, the construction method of the ground fire room, and even the wind-chasing sword art and covering rain sword art. These are all benefits. And the Zifu Tianjiao list, which is famous all over the world, belongs to the name. What are monks practicing for? The first place is of course immortality. It's just that there have been hundreds of thousands of years in this realm without the birth of a Mahayana true immortal cultivator who ascended to the upper realm. For the vast majority of monks, the idea of becoming an immortal is nothing but an ethereal dream. In addition to becoming immortal, the second biggest goal pursued by monks is naturally longevity. And if you want to live long, you can't escape the demand for exercises and various cultivation resources. However, most of these things are occupied by Wan Xinghai's immortal clan and Qianyuan Jianzong. Ordinary monks want to obtain a lot of cultivation resources. In addition to grabbing food from the Shuxian clan and Qianyuan Jianzong, they only have to go to the battlefield to obtain military exploits. When a cultivator achieves the goal of longevity, he can't live in emptiness and cultivate for the sake of cultivation all day long, right? The friar will naturally begin to pursue something else. Such as beauty, such as material enjoyment, such as, the most important thing for monks, reputation. In the world of immortal cultivation, generally the more senior monks are, the more they tend to value such things as reputation. The 3 lists launched by Qianyuan Jianzong just satisfy the cultivator's desire for name. Using the 2 weapons of name and li, Qianyuan Jianzong tied the entire Wanxinghai cultivator to its chariot. For 400 years, Qianyuan Jianzong drove this chariot to rampage in Xianyun continent, turning the country upside down. Even from the perspective of a modern person like Qin Daoxian, the helm of Qianyuan Jianzong is a remarkable figure. When I saw Zhou Mubai in white clothes fluttering at the front line, standing on the ground. Qin Daoxuan's mentality is quite balanced. After all, he is much younger than Zhou Mubai, and in terms of potential, Qin Daoxian claims that he will never be weaker than the other party. On the other hand, Wei Sihai and Qin Xianhe were full of loneliness in their eyes. After all, in terms of age, both of them are nearly 100 years old. In terms of cultivation, the white figure on the horizon is completely different from them. As monks of the same era, it is impossible to say that the 2 of them have no feelings in their hearts. It's just that the gap between the 2 sides is so big that neither of them dare to feel jealous. This kind of taste, only they can experience it. Just when people's minds are different. The battle on the front lines has begun. However, because the distance between the 2 sides is too far, Qin Daoxian and others cannot detect such a long distance with their spiritual sense, and relying on their eyesight, they simply cannot keep up with the speed of the 2 sides. You can only see the sword light flickering on the horizon, and the roar is constant. Unexpectedly, in this level of battle, they are not even qualified to watch. Feeling the impact of the aftermath of the battle, Qin Daoxian sighed. Thanks to them being far enough away. Qin Daoxian even saw that the row of ships in the front was actually destroyed by the aftermath of the battle between Zhou Mubai and the high-ranking merman. And the monks watching the battle also had a ghostly expression, and they all fled. With Zhou Mubai and the high-ranking merman as the center, no one dared to approach within a radius of 10 kilometers. Finally, accompanied by a sword light that was about 100 feet long, the high-ranking merman fled with injuries, and even the entire merman tribe fled. Another Zifu cultivator from the Zhou family was about to chase, but was stopped by the pale Zhou Mubai. "Three uncles, don't chase after him." "Mubai, are you alright?" Seeing Zhou Mubai's pale face, the cultivator he called the third uncle immediately became nervous. Zhou Mubai was the most talented cultivator of his Zhou family's younger generation. Not only did he break through the Zifu period at a young age, but he was also a kendo genius who understood the meaning of swordsmanship at the foundation building level. This is also the biggest reason why Zhou Mubai is listed on the Zifu Tianjiao list. He is a sword cultivator that is even rarer than the Tianlingen cultivator. And now, Zhou Mubai seems to be injured. This makes the old man not angry. Thinking of this, the old man who was called the third uncle by Zhou Mubai couldn't help but scolded, "Mubai, what kind of one-on-one rule is there for this kind of alien race? Why did you and I get hurt when you and I joined forces to take him down?" After scolding, the old man showed a distressed expression again. "Is your injury serious?" "Third uncle, don't worry, it's just a minor injury." Zhou Mubai shook his head. "My Zhou family captures the merman every year, and the merman clan always resents my Zhou family. If we don't follow the rules and kill that high-ranking merman this time, the merman clan and my Zhou family will never be friends again. There's room for maneuver." "What if there is no room for maneuver? Is my Zhou family still afraid of the mere people?" The third uncle was very disdainful. Seeing the attitude of the third uncle, Zhou Mubai hesitated, finally shook his head and stopped talking. Not only the third uncle, but all the monks of the Zhou family felt that the Zhou family was an invincible existence in the 100,000-mile sea area, and no one cared about it. Zhou Mubai knew in his heart that this kind of mentality of the clansmen was not good for the Zhou family. In recent years, several major foundation-building families headed by the Yang family have also become more and more distant from the Zhou family. Even as far as he knows, the Yang family has been secretly uniting with other foundation-building families and wants to build another immortal city to compete with the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture. It's just that because of the distribution of interests and fear of the Zhou family's power, the alliance has not been able to talk smoothly. Chapter 25. 3 days later. In a restaurant in Sangxiafang City. "Fellow Daoist Wei, for the purchase of the store, I would like to thank you for your help. My Qin family is very grateful." "Thank you, Senior, for your help." Qin Xianhe and Qin Daoxian raised their wine glasses, toasted a glass of wine to Wei Sihai, and said with a smile, "Everywhere, everyone is a friend, a trivial matter, a trivial matter." Wei Sihai hurriedly picked up the wine glass and said with a smile, "In 3 days, the trivial matter of the mermen attacking Guang'an Mansion had already subsided." In the Sangxiafang city, the topic of discussion among the people gradually shifted from this war to the discussion about the Guang'an sword immortal Zhou Mubai. Push the cup to change the room. The atmosphere at the wine table gradually warmed up. Qin Xianhe couldn't help but sighed with his slight drunkenness. "Xianqing of Guang'an Prefecture is really worth an inch of land. I didn't expect the price of this shop in Sangxiafang City to be so high." "Yes." When Wei Sihai heard this, he deeply agreed. He spent the longest time in Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture, and felt the deepest. Actually, the shops in Sangxiafang City are quite good. A medium-sized storefront can be purchased with only 1,000 spirit stones at most. The most exaggerated is the shops in the core business district. Speaking of exaggerated store prices in the core business district, Wei Sihai shook his head. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian asked calmly, "Are the shops in the core business district expensive?" "Expensive?" Wei Sihai smiled. The shops there can no longer be described only by the word expensive, although the prices on the market are only 10 times more expensive than those in Sangxiafang City. But the fact is that the shops there can't be bought with money, and they are all controlled by the Zhou, Yang, Wu and other immortal clans. Ordinary monks and small families want to intervene, it is as difficult as going to the sky. Maybe he drank a little too much, and Wei Sihai's words began to increase gradually. Coupled with the deep dissatisfaction with the immortal clan, he actually asked Qin Daoxian and the two to talk to them at this moment. Let's just say that the restaurant under our feet is the property of the Wu family of the immortal cultivator. In Sangxiafang City, restaurants, inns, tooth shops, more than 90% are controlled by the cultivator. In the core business district, such a proportion has reached an exaggerated 10%. We have the largest number of loose cultivators and small clan children, but we get the least. How unfair. At the end, Wei Sihai smashed the wine glass on the wine table heavily. Hearing this, everyone was silent for a while. Half an hour. Qin Xianhe said quietly, "Brother Wei, you are drunk." Hearing this, Wei Sihai suddenly broke into a cold sweat and woke up 7 or 8 points from drinking. It is not a wise thing to scold the immortal clan here loudly. Although almost all of the loose cultivators were dissatisfied with the immortal clan, none of them dared to pour their bitterness out in an open and honest manner. Because of the daring cultivators, they all disappeared without a sound. Seeing this scene, Qin Daoxian hurriedly raised other topics to avoid the embarrassment of the cold field. After half an hour. After the banquet was over, it was getting late. Qin Daoxian and 13th uncle Qin Xianhe walked back to the inn side by side, speechless all the way. Back to the inn. Just when Qin Daoxian was about to practice, Qin Xianhe knocked on the door. "Uncle 13, is there something wrong so late?" "Well, let's go in and talk." Hearing this, Qin Daoxian hurriedly made a gesture of invitation. The two entered the room. Qin Daoxian thought for a while, and cautiously set up a soundproof formation. "Daoxian, since the shop has been prepared, I will sit in the shop next, and leave the family affairs to you." Speaking of this, Qin Ziyan's eyes were complicated. Qin Daoxuan's growth rate is far beyond his imagination, not only his personal strength, but also his level of refining. In the past few days, Qin Xianhe has long wanted to understand that Qin Daoxian is not the first-order low-grade craftsman he said, but a senior first-rank high-grade craftsman. Although he doesn't know why his nephew hides his clumsiness in front of him, from another perspective, Qin Daoxian understands the truth of Mu Xiu Yulin when he is only 16 years old. Prove that he is far more mature than he imagined. Thinking of this, Qin Xianhe felt a little relieved about the fact that he was about to hand over the power of the family to Qin Daoxian. The words fall. Qin Xianhe took out a seal from the storage bag. The whole body of this seal is black, with a strong aura on it, and it is actually a first-order high-grade magic weapon. This is the patriarch seal of my Qin family. Now, I will give it to you. Qin Xianhe handed over the black seal and said solemnly. Qin Daoxian took the seal and nodded solemnly. Finish explaining this. Qin Xianhe immediately asked, "By the way, how did you do the purchase of supplies?" "Everything is ready, just wait for the ship to be loaded tomorrow, and you can return to Shuanghu Island." Qin Daoxian paused. "This time we have taken out a total of 8,743 spirit stones from the clan library, of which I spent 100 spirit stones to purchase water spirit beads privately, and 500 spirit stones to purchase an inheritance of refining the wind and thunder array instrument. The shop spent 1,000 spirit stones, and the purchase of various materials cost a total of 6,721 spirit stones, and now I still have 422 spirit stones in my hand." Speaking of this, Qin Daoxian smiled bitterly. "This is all our family's belongings." Hearing that the family's 300-year savings was actually spent on this trip, Qin Xianhe was mentally prepared, but still felt a burst of heartache. Seeing Qin Ziyan's ugly face, Qin Daoxian hurriedly comforted him. "Uncle 13, these are the inevitable expenses for the development of the family. Besides, we will definitely be able to earn it back 10-fold or 100-fold in the future." Hearing this, Qin Xianhe sighed. "I hope so." As if thinking of something, Qin Xianhe took out a jade bottle from the storage bag. "By the way, this is a little gift I bought for you in the core business district a few days ago. Accept it." Qin Daoxian curiously took the jade bottle and opened it. A strong medicinal fragrance emanated from the jade bottle. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian quickly sealed the bottle. Gathering Qi Dan. It turned out to be a first-order mid-grade elixir that assists cultivators in the qi refining period, qi gathering pill. According to Chen Daoxian's understanding, the price of a qi gathering pill is as high as 50 spirit stones, which is almost equivalent to a first-order low-grade magic weapon. For such an expensive qi gathering pill, there are actually 10 pills in the bottle. Dao Xian, when the family obviously had the ability to buy Tong Mai pill for you, I didn't buy it for you. Have you ever resented me in your heart? Why did Uncle 13 say this? Dao Xian has never thought of it this way. The price of Tong Mai pill is as high as 500 spirit stones. If it was me, I wouldn't buy such an expensive spirit pill for my descendants when my family could not make ends meet. Chen Xianhe shook his head, but do you know? When I saw you use the wind-chasing sword art of the Deshang realm a few days ago, I regretted it. Although 500 spirit stones are too many, I have delayed the cultivation time of a genius cultivator in my family for 5 years. Chen Daoxian didn't know how to answer this. Dao Xian, I can see that your future path is farther than me or any ancestor of the Chen family, but Uncle 13 wants to ask you one thing. Speaking of this, Chen Xianhe looked at Chen Daoxian with red eyes. But according to Uncle 13's orders, no matter what the future holds, don't abandon your family, okay? Because here is your roots. Hearing this plea, Chen Daoxian was overwhelmed by an unspeakable emotion. With red eyes, Chen Daoxian nodded heavily and said, no matter what happens in the future, Daoxian will never abandon the family. Very good. A gratified smile appeared on Chen Xian's face. Chapter 26, the next day. Guang'an Port Terminal. As trucks after trucks loaded all kinds of spiritual minerals onto the Canglong cargo ship, Chen Xianhe looked at the busy clansmen on the cargo ship, turned to look at Chen Daoxian, and said, this trip is a long way back to Shuanghu Island, I wish you all the best. You guys are going well. Chen Daoxian nodded, Uncle 13, take care of yourself too. When the family's crafting workshop is built and the output of the magical tools is stable, I will come to you with the refined magical tools. Don't worry, with the magic tools you gave me yesterday, the magic weapon shop is enough to support it for a while. Chen Xianhe touched the storage bag on his waist and smiled. Chen Daoxian glanced at Uncle 13's storage bag, and thought to himself, this magic weapon is probably far from enough. The magic tools he handed over to Chen Xianhe yesterday are some of the fine magic tools that he has refined during his 5-year learning process. Among them, there are 23 first-order low-grade magic tools, 11 first-order middle-grade magic tools, and a total of 34 magic tools. In Chen Xian's opinion, these instruments are a huge amount, and the market value is about 3,000 spirit stones. Even due to the shortage of high-quality instruments in the market, the actual value may be higher. Chen Xianhe felt that with so many magical tools, it was enough to support the opening of the magical tools store for a period of time. But obviously, Chen Xianhe still underestimated the demand for high-quality instruments by the scattered cultivators in the immortal city of Guang'an. From Chen Daoxian's point of view, if this magic weapon is thrown into the huge magic weapon market of Sangxiafang City, it will be digested in an instant if it can't even turn out a wave. Of course, Chen Daoxian is not easy to explain these speculations, otherwise, when the magic weapon is unsaleable, it will be slapped in the face. Correct, seemingly remembering something, Chen Xianhe changed his words, Daoxian, why did you name the family's magic weapon shop Hengyin Feijian shop instead of Chen's magic weapon shop? Do you mean that the next main product of our family is Feijian? That's right. Chen Daoxian nodded and explained, in Wangxinghai, due to the influence of Qianyuan Jianzong, the proportion of monks using flying swords is as high as 90%, and the market for flying swords is the broadest. The reason why I chose this name is that my Chen family has a place in the market of flying swords. As for the deeper brand value, Chen Daoxian couldn't explain it to Chen Xianhe for a while, so he simply didn't explain it. The commercial development of xiancheng in Guang'an Prefecture is still at a relatively low level. No matter what the shops here sell, most of them have vague names. For example, Was Magical Item Shop, XX Pill Medicine Shop, XX Treasure House and so on. Almost no magic weapons store is specialized in sales, in other words, they do not have the concept of vertical field at all. And this magic weapon shop opened by the Chen family is very targeted at the consumer groups, loose cultivators and children of small families. This group of consumers has two characteristics. 1. The number is huge. Second, the requirements for the quality of the instruments are not high. And these 2 points are the biggest advantages of the Chen family. The huge number of consumer groups proves that the production requirements of the products are very high, otherwise the consumer market cannot be satisfied. The requirements for the rank of the magical instruments are not high, which means that Qin Dao Xian, a first-rank high-grade artifact refiner, can meet the production conditions. Coupled with the fact that the Qin family specializes in the sales of flying sword-like instruments, Qin Dao Xian believes that the brand of Hongyin Feijian will be an instant hit. After half an hour. On the aft deck. Qin Dao Xian waved at Qin Xianhe, whose figure was gradually blurred, and turned back to the cabin. The cabin of the Canglong is divided into 3 layers. The first and second floors belong to the warehouse and are the largest in area. The third floor is the cabin for the crew. Qin Dao Xian also lived on the 3rd floor, but unlike the 5 ordinary Qin clan members who were crowded into one room, the cabin where Qin Dao Xian lived was a luxurious single room. 7 days later. Southwest waters of Wangxinghai. The Canglong sailed against the wind and waves in the vast sea. Inside the cabin. Qin Dao Xian sat cross-legged on the futon with his eyes closed. During the voyage of Wanxinghai, he could not practice Guiyuan Gong, so Qin Dao Xian devoted all his energy to the practice of wind-chasing sword art. I have to say that this time, wind-chasing sword art has broken through to the realm of great achievement, greatly increasing his strength. Otherwise, only relying on that first-rank top-grade flying snow sword would at most only be able to injure the blood-spotted sea snake, and would not be able to kill it in one blow. Therefore, Qin Dao Xian became more interested in the practice of wind-chasing sword art. After a stick of incense. After the epiphany was over, Qin Dao Xian opened his eyes. I didn't expect that the cultivation of wind-chasing sword art was so difficult after reaching the realm of Deshang. After 2 epiphanies, it was worthy to increase the power increase of Feijian from 60% to 80%. Qin Dao Xian sighed. Actually, as early as the 2nd epiphany, Qin Daoxuan's wind-chasing sword art reached the realm of great achievement, and the increase in the power of the flying sword also reached 60%. After that, he had 2 epiphanies in succession, and only increased the power of the flying sword by 20%. It must be said that Qin Dao Xian felt a little discouraged. You know, this is the result of his cultivation under the condition that his comprehension has increased tenfold. If he didn't rely on the ability of Hongmeng Enlightenment Dao Jing to store his comprehension and only rely on Qin Dao Xian to cultivate by himself, I am afraid that if he was given another 10 years, he might not be able to cultivate wind-chasing sword art from Deshang to the current state. No wonder there is no record of the perfect state in this sword art. Perhaps even the founder of this sword art is not optimistic that the younger generation can cultivate this sword art to the perfect level. Qin Dao Xian shook his head. Indeed, for a chi-refining cultivator, to cultivate a first-order sword art to the perfect state is really difficult for a strong man. Generally speaking, cultivators in the foundation building stage spend a lot of energy, but it is possible to cultivate the first-order sword art to the perfect state. But there is no need. Because they are already qualified to practice more advanced second-order sword tactics or second-order spells. As long as a base-building cultivator spends a few years of effort to cultivate the second-order sword art to the realm of minor achievement, the power increase of the flying sword is no less than that of the first-order sword art at the perfect level. Why bother to look farther? Performing the wind-chasing sword art, that he had just realized in the cabin, Chen Daoxian got up and walked out of the cabin. At this time, a poignant song rang in his ears, and Chen Daoxian felt dizzy. Not good. Chen Daoxian bit the tip of his tongue sharply, and his consciousness instantly woke up. When he flew to the deck of the Canglong, his consciousness swept away and found that except for him, all the clansmen on the whole ship were slumped to the ground and fainted. Looking down from the sky. In the sea water below the Canglong, one after another black shadows swim under the water, densely packed with countless numbers. Most of these shadows are more than 10 feet long, and they are obviously not human. Listening to the poignant singing in his ears, Chen Daoxian took out the flying snow sword and recited the Hongmeng Enlightenment classic, silently, resisting the invasion of the Sea of Knowledge by the singing. But the next moment, Chen Daoxian's will to resist was instantly disintegrated. In the sea, a strong figure with fish tail stepped on the surging waves and appeared in front of him. Next to this strong figure is a petite figure. It's you. Seeing this person in front of him, Chen Daoxian's heart sank little by little. Chapter 27, On the Sea. The Canglong was controlled by an invisible force and had stopped sailing. The waves crashed against the bow of the Canglong, making a rushing sound. In front of the bow of the Canglong, a sturdy, middle-aged man with bronze-colored muscles all over his body and a resolute face stepped on the waves and looked down at Chen Daoxian, who was standing on the bow deck. Mermaid. However, the merman in front of him seemed to be seriously injured, and there was a huge gap in his chest, and the sword energy was in between, making the wound difficult to heal. The merman in front of him was the one who fought against Zhou Mubai, the arrogant son of the Zhou family in Guang'an Mansion 10 days ago. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxian had a hint of despair in his eyes. Not to mention the tens of thousands of mermaid ethnic groups under the sea. The two just stared at each other silently. A long time. Chen Daoxian put down the flying snow sword under enormous psychological pressure, clasped his fist and said, Junior Qianyuan Jianzong has entrusted the clan, Chen Daoxian, the young patriarch of the Chen family in Changping County, Shuanghu Island, has seen the senior. Don't blame him for pulling the banner of Qianyuan Jianzong, it is really too powerful for the merman in front of him, and Chen Daoxian can't compete at all. He estimated that this merman had at least a cultivation level above the middle stage of the human purple palace. Otherwise, it is absolutely impossible to fight Zhou Mubai on the Zifu Tianjiao list. As for the banner of the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture, did he think he didn't die fast enough? Really? Hearing the name Qianyuan Jianzong, there was a flash of fear in the eyes of the merman in front of him. Although his eyes changed quickly, he was still caught by Chen Daoxian's peripheral vision. Humph. Human monk, you don't have to use Qianyuan's sword sect to scare me. Little life saved. Hearing that the middle-aged merman was willing to speak, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. What he was most afraid of was that the other party didn't even want to talk about it, so he directly attacked the killer. Senior misunderstood. Junior has no intention of this. Chen Daoxian said with sincerity, it's just because the abominable Zhou family exploits our children too much, and I really don't want to be with them. While Chen Daoxian drew a clear line with the Zhou family, he explained that he was by no means a threat to the other party. Unsurprisingly, after hearing the name of the Zhou family, the middle-aged merman's face was full of haze, and he obviously hated this family very much in his heart. Seeing the other party's emotional out-of-control appearance, Chen Daoxian was beating his heart. Don't get angry and kill him by mistake, then he can't deal with it. Chen Daoxian secretly said. The middle-aged merman in front of him is, after all, the leader of a merman tribe. Although he was extremely resentful, he quickly adjusted his emotions. I saw him slowly lowering his body, looked at Chen Daoxian flatly, and said, Are you here from Guang'an Mansion? Senior, this junior sailed here from Guang'an Mansion 7 days ago. Chen Daoxian bowed. The middle-aged merman nodded noncommittally, and immediately seemed to find something, only to see him beckon lightly. A red spiritual ore flew out from the cargo hold of the Tsanglong, and he was holding it in his palm. It was the copper ore that Chen Daoxian bought in Xiancheng, Guang'an Prefecture. Although he didn't know what the other party meant, Chen Daoxian didn't dare to resist at all, so he lowered his head and waited for the other party's decision. Human monk, what is this? The middle-aged merman held the copper mine and asked. Senior, this is called red copper ore, which is a kind of spiritual ore. Chen Daoxian answered every question he had, and was very well behaved. Is this weapon in your hand made of red copper ore? The middle-aged merman pointed to the flying snow sword in Chen Daoxian's hand and continued. Senior, this flying sword in my hand is indeed made of spirit ore, but it's not red copper ore, but several other spirit ore. Hearing this, the middle-aged merman and the petite female merman next to him looked at each other and nodded. You are quite honest, unlike other human monks, who are cunning and cunning. Chen Daoxian hurriedly bowed his body lower. Thank you for your praise, senior. Okay, stand up straight and talk. The middle-aged merman waved his hand. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that his little life was saved today. Let me ask you, don't all of your small family members like human monks go to Guang'an House to sell spiritual ores? Why do you buy so many spiritual ores? Hearing this, Chen Daoxian struggled in his heart, and finally chose to tell some truth. Senior, because there are artifact refiners in the younger generation's family, they need to buy spiritual ore and go back to refining the instruments. Is this weapon in your hand the magic weapon you said? He pointed to the flying snow sword in Chen Daoxian's hand and asked. Chen Daoxian decisively handed the flying snow sword over and said, Exactly, senior, please take a look. The middle-aged merman beckoned, and Fixuajian flew towards him. I saw him take the flying snow sword, hand it to the female merman beside him, and instructed, Luo Er, come and try. Yes, my father. The female merman known as Luo Er took the Fei Shui sword and entered a demonic force. Immediately, Fei Shui sword's aura sword, and at the tip of the sword, a 9-foot-long sword light was swollen, and even the air was slightly distorted. What a sharp weapon! The female merman said with emotion, if our tribe had such sharp weapons, the Zhou family would not have thought about arresting the sisters so easily and wantonly. When it comes to the female merman captured by the Zhou family's mercenary team, the merman named Luo Er has a pretty face and is cold. Chen Daoxian didn't say a word, and tried to be as transparent as possible to avoid suffering unwarranted disasters. Father, you said, can we? What do you mean? Facing the two voice transmissions in front of him, Chen Daoxian had to wait quietly. After a cup of tea, the middle-aged merman said again, Human monk, we have a business we would like to talk to your family about. I wonder if you are interested. Probably guessing what, Chen Daoxian reluctantly said, I don't know which aspect of business the predecessors are referring to. After all, the middle-aged merman is the leader of a clan, and at a glance, he can see the reluctance in Chen Daoxian's eyes. He frowned and said, Human monks, our mere people are not your human race, and we won't do that kind of forced buying and selling, don't worry about that. Senior, forgive me, this is not what this junior means. Chen Daoxian hurriedly explained. Who knows that the other party waved his hand and said, Look at the price we gave first. As he spoke, he made a look at Luo Er, the female merman beside him. The female merman named Luo Er nodded knowingly and plunged her head towards the sea. The work of half a column of incense. Luo Er stepped on the waves and appeared in front of the two again. This time, when she saw a few things in her hands, Chen Daoxian's eyes suddenly lit up, and his saliva almost came out. Spirit shells, spirit ore, and what the Chen family lacks the most, spirit stone. As long as you agree to this business, our mere people will have as many of these things as we want. The middle-aged merman looked at Chen Daoxian. Seeing these treasures, Chen Daoxian immediately stopped pretending to be cautious, and said excitedly, What kind of business the senior wants to talk about, please tell me clearly. I can't blame him for changing his face faster than flipping a book. Chapter 28. After listening to the narrative of the middle-aged merman, Qin Daoxian was silent. Senior, what do you mean, you want to buy magic weapons from our family? Exactly. The middle-aged shark nodded. After pondering for a moment, Qin Daoxian shook his head. Senior, I am afraid that the younger generation will not be able to agree to your request. Hearing this, the middle-aged merman hadn't spoken yet, but Luo Li, who was beside him, was anxious. Why is this? Do you think the price we gave is not enough? If so, we can. Before the other party could finish speaking, Qin Daoxian shook his head with a wry smile. This girl, it's not like that. He paused. After all, your mermen and mine belong to different races. If your mere people buy magic weapons from our Qin family to kill our children. Let's not say whether my Qin family's conscience is good or not, Qianyuan Jianzong will not let our Qin family go. Hearing this explanation, the middle-aged man and the female merman named Luo Li were all silent. Different races are not negotiable. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Seeing this, the middle-aged merman faintly threatened. Senior can naturally kill me, but my Qin family, like the Zhou family, is the imperial family of Qianyuan Jianzong. If the senior did such an evil act, Qianyuan Jianzong will definitely seek justice for my Qin family in the future. Seniors, don't forget, this junior is a craftsman. As long as the seniors understand the importance of Qianyuan Jianzong to craftsmen and alchemists, they will know that what the juniors say is true. Speaking of this, Qin Daoxian looked at the other party angrily, posing as if he was dying. Seeing that Qin Daoxian suddenly became soft and hard, the middle-aged merman suddenly felt a little embarrassed. From the bottom of his heart, he never wanted to be an enemy of the human race. After all, the human race is the absolute overlord in this world, and his mermaid race can't even win against the small Zhou family, let alone compete with such a behemoth as the Qianyuan sword sect. It's just that sometimes you don't want to be an enemy of others, and others just want to bully you. Just like the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture. In order to breed Ling Bei, they did not hesitate to arrest the merman women, and even imprisoned merman men as stallions, allowing them to reproduce and serve as slaves for the Zhou family for life. For hundreds of years. The mermen have resisted countless times, but each time ended in failure. This time, the resistance of the mere people was the largest, but it was easily defeated by the Zhou family. In desperation, the middle-aged merman had to lead the clan to relocate in order to avoid the arrest of the Zhou family. Because of this, he met Qin Daoxian's cargo ship on the way. A long time. The middle-aged merman said faintly, I can swear on behalf of my Luo clan's merman family, and I will never use the magic weapon sold to us by your Qin family to kill any human child. The Avenue Oath. Hearing this oath, Qin Daoxian was moved. In this world, the Great Tao Oath is one of the most stringent oaths for practitioners, and another oath equivalent to it is the Netherworld Blood Oath. It's just that the Netherworld Blood Oath is vicious and abnormal. Even if it doesn't violate the oath, there is the possibility of backlash, so few people make this kind of oath. Seeing the middle-aged merman make such an oath, Qin Daoxian estimated that the heat was almost over. If you push the other party again, it will be counterproductive. After thinking about it, Qin Daoxian asked, I would take the liberty to ask, since your mere people don't use weapons to deal with my human race, why do you insist on buying magic tools from my Qin family? Hearing this, Luo Li on the side said angrily, do you think any race can live as easily as your human race, without foreign enemies? My mermaid race lives in the deep sea, how many monsters and alien races are there? If there is no force to defend the clan, the only way to wait for my merman clan is to perish. After speaking, the eyes of this beautiful mermaid woman dimmed. This time, the Zhou family forced the entire family to migrate, and there would inevitably be a war with other races in the underwater world, and it was unknown how many brothers and sisters would die by then. Thinking of this, Luo Li's expression became even more depressed. Chen Daoxian couldn't understand the hardships of the Mer people, but the monster chaos in Changping County let him know that the world is not without danger, especially in the deep sea. Pretend to think for a moment. Chen Daoxian nodded in embarrassment. Okay, since your mermaid is not buying weapons to deal with my human, then this business can naturally be done, but the specific price needs to be discussed carefully. With that said, Chen Daoxian took out 2 flying swords from the storage bag, the first-order low-grade flying swords and the first-order middle-grade flying swords. Look at it. Chen Daoxian handed the flying sword over. The two took the flying sword and examined it carefully. Luo Li frowned and said, "You man, these 2 weapons are not as good as one, and neither is comparable to the one you showed us before." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian said with a smile, "This is natural, and the price of the instruments is different for different grades." As he said that, he looked at the middle-aged merman and said, "It's like the magic weapon that hurt the senior, it's totally expensive." Hearing this, the middle-aged merman remembered the flying sword used by Zhou Mubai, and nodded in agreement. If it is that weapon, it is indeed a priceless treasure. Hearing this, Luo Li's beautiful eyes lit up and she asked expectantly, "Does your Chen family have that kind of treasure to sell?" Cough cough, Chen Daoxian coughed awkwardly, "The girl is joking. Besides, my Chen family has a magic weapon of this level, I'm afraid you can't afford the price." "That's right." Luo Li's voice gradually decreased. Seeing that the topic was being led off by the other party, Chen Daoxian hurriedly turned the topic back and said, These 3 instruments are first-order low-grade, first-grade middle-grade, and first-grade high-grade instruments. And their prices are 500, 1,000, and 2,000 spirit stones respectively. At present, my Chen family can refine a lot of them, only the first-order low-grade magic tools, that is, the price of 500 spirit stones. Chen Daoxian almost didn't hold his breath when he shouted that the first-order low-grade flying sword needed 500 spirit stones. Just when he was about to accept the price bargaining of the Mer people, Luo Li said with joy, "This weapon can be bought for only 500 broken stones? This is too cheap. And this weapon, as long as it costs 2,000 stones, shouldn't you be afraid of us and deliberately say such a low price?" Hearing this price, Luo Li immediately had a good impression on Chen Daoxian. He felt that the human race was different from the human race. Compared with the wicked people of the Zhou family, the young man in front of him was simply a good person. Hear this. Chen Daoxian felt that he seemed to underestimate the wealth of the underwater world. Not only him, all the monks in Wan Xinghai may have ignored the great wealth of the deep-sea world. But if you think about it, it's impossible. The cultivators said that it was omnipotent in the sky, but Chen Daoxian knew that low-level cultivators simply did not have the ability to go to the underwater world to mine. According to Chen Daoxian's understanding, this world is obviously different from the spherical world of the previous life, and in terms of its vastness, it is even more difficult to know how many times it is away from the Earth. In the same way, the depth of the sea in this world is not known to exceed the previous life by many times. In this way, the pitiful infuriating chi of the low-level cultivator could not resist the terrifying pressure brought by the deep sea at all. Therefore, the development of the underwater world has become nonsense. The mermen are different. They have special racial talents that allow them to survive in the underwater world freely, which other terrestrial races cannot envy. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian's gaze towards Luo Li suddenly became extremely eager. Chapter 29. Why are you looking at me like that? Am I wrong? Luo Li felt a little hairy at the sight of Chen Daoxian, and said angrily. Cough cough, Miss Luo's words are bad. Chen Daoxian coughed and cleared his throat. Perhaps in the eyes of Senior and Miss Luo, the price of magic instruments is low, but we have already earned you money by selling them to you at this price. So Miss Luo doesn't have to think that I lowered the price of magic weapons because I was afraid of you. Chen Daoxian's businesslike appearance made Luo Li not sure how to answer. Okay. Since we are both satisfied with the price of the magic weapon, let's trade at this price. The middle-aged merman clapped. Chen Daoxian was afraid that the other party would regret it, so he nodded quickly and said, yes. After the initial cooperation intention was reached, the atmosphere between the two parties was relieved immediately. The middle-aged merman pointed at the merman woman next to him, and said with a smile, this is my daughter Luo Li. From now on, she will represent my Luo clan and be responsible for the transaction of magical instruments between our two clans. After speaking, the middle-aged merman gave Luo Li a look beside him. Luo Li nodded knowingly, and slammed it from her waist, and a scale was buckled down by her. Human monk, this is the scale of my life. With it, you can contact me anywhere within a radius of 10,000 miles. Luo Li's pretty face turned pale. After taking the scale, Chen Daoxian silently put it back into the storage bag. When we settle the clan, we will come to complete the transaction with you. The middle-aged merman looked at Chen Daoxian quietly, human monk, when the time comes. I hope you don't lie to us. Don't dare. Chen Daoxian bowed. That's good. After speaking, the middle-aged merman and the merman woman named Luo Li jumped into the water with a plop and disappeared. Looking down from the sky. The dark crowd of mermen under the sea gradually faded away and eventually disappeared. After half an hour, the clansmen on the Tsanglong woke up one by one. When the panicked clansmen gradually calmed down under the comfort of Chen Daoxian, everyone drove the Tsanglong again and continued toward Shuanghu Island. 20 days later, the Tsanglong returned to the deep water port of Shuanghu Island safely, and there were no more accidents on the way. Shuanghu Island, Changping County. Chen's Ancestral Hall. Chen's Ancestral Hall is not only the ancestral hall of the Chen family on Shuanghu Island, but also the highest power center of the family. In the past 300 years, the various forms of clan meetings presided over here have determined the fate and rise and fall of the Chen clan. Chen Daoxian sat in the original position of Chen Xianhe, looking down at the Chen clan standing in the 2 rows below, and couldn't help feeling emotional. The Chen family is really dreadful. In a dignified immortal clan, he was the only cultivator in the clan, and it made people laugh when he said it. Shaking his head, he threw the distracting thoughts out of his mind. Chen Daoxian, who occupies the throne of the patriarch, said, because the patriarch needs to sit in the family shop in the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture, I will temporarily serve as the patriarch of the family in the future. After finishing speaking, Chen Daoxian took out the black seal symbolizing the patriarch's identity in front of everyone. After listening to Chen Daoxian's words, everyone was not surprised. In their hearts, Chen Daoxian, the only new generation cultivator of the Chen family, was the perfect candidate for the future patriarch of the family. Coupled with the old patriarch's advanced age, they were already mentally prepared for Chen Daoxian to take over as the patriarch. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and after discussing in a low voice, they bowed their hands and said, "See you the young patriarch. You are exempt." Chen Daoxian waved his hand. In the early years, because I concentrated on cultivation, I didn't participate much in family affairs, so I was not familiar with everyone, but in the future, I hope everyone can work together to assist me and develop my Shuanghu Island Chen family. After hearing this, Chen Ji, the magistrate of Changping County, who was ranked first in the right column, stood up, and took the lead in bowing his hands, saying, "The county magistrate of Changping County will definitely cooperate with the young patriarch, rectify the family affairs, and develop the family." Chen Daoxian nodded in satisfaction. Seeing this, Chen Liangyu, the former head of the copper mine in the first column on the left, was secretly annoyed. Such a good opportunity to show loyalty was actually snatched up by Chen Ji. Thinking of this, Chen Liangyu was unwilling to be reconciled, and quickly said, "We, the copper mine, are also willing to follow the orders of the young patriarch." Very good. I can see everyone's thoughts. Chen Daoxian smiled and said, "Right now, there are indeed a few important things for you to do." Seeing everyone put on a look of listening intently, Chen Daoxian looked at the magistrate of Changping County and said, "Chen Ji, subordinates are here. Chen Ji bowed and responded. My Chen family in Shuanghu Island, how many households are there in total? Chief Patriarch, Shuanghu Island has 774 households with a total of 3,873 people, including 597 households with a population of 2,987 in Changping County, and 177 households in each village with a population of 886. The population of the village is so small, Chen Daoxian frowned. How was the family's food problem solved? Young Patriarch, the food issue. In the past, the old patriarch bought food from Guang'an Prefecture to subsidize the clan. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's unpleasant expression, Chen Ji said cautiously. Then, what about the specific demographics of the family? Hearing this question, Chen Ji was stunned for a while, and said with some uncertainty, dare to ask the young patriarch, what is the demographic structure? Chen Daoxian knew that he actually said the words of his previous life in a hurry. So he explained with a calm expression, it is the detailed proportion of the family population according to gender and age. This. Chen Ji was sweating profusely and was at a loss. He really didn't know this question. But it was obviously not the county magistrate's style to sit still, so he cupped his hands and said, you young patriarch, the county government does not have statistics on the specific demographic structure of the family. But, as far as my subordinates know, my Chen family is young. The population has always been larger, and there are plenty of males. Chen Ji thought that Chen Daoxian was worried about the shortage of Chen's men, so he emphasized the characteristics of Chen's sufficient men. Who knows that Chen Daoxian was not happy when he heard this answer, but his heart became more and more heavy. The abundance of males means that there are not enough females and an unbalanced ratio between males and females. This means that the Chen family cannot expand the family population in a short period of time. The number of family members is directly related to the growth of the family cultivator group, which can be described as the lifeblood of the family. After rubbing his swollen head, Chen Daoxian finally knew how much pressure Chen Xianhe had put on himself over the years so that he could concentrate on cultivating and learning the artifact. Ignoring this question, Chen Daoxian continued to ask, how many fields are there in the clan? Hearing this question, Chen Ji breathed a sigh of relief. Chief Patriarch, my Chen family has a total of 4,657 acres of fertile land. With so many fields, there are only 177 village households. Are the farmers farming? This. Chen Ji wiped the sweat from his forehead, not knowing how to answer. He couldn't say that most of the fields here belonged to wealthy families. Even in the Xiuxian world, the problem of land annexation within the Xiuxian family has always existed. Even the small Chen family has such problems. It's just that the monks are usually high above, and they don't care about these issues at all. If the mortal trouble is really serious, the monks will use their extraordinary power to forcibly smash the inherent class and redistribute the benefits. Seeing that the other party could not answer, Chen Daoxian continued to ask, then how big is the land area of my Shuanghu Island, should your county government know? I don't know, my subordinates don't know. Feeling the increasing power of Chen Daoxian, the county magistrate Chen Ji didn't even dare to lift his head. Chapter 30, Clan Meeting. Chen Ji was sweating profusely, and he found that the young patriarch Chen Daoxian felt more pressure on him than the old patriarch who ignored the common things. At least the old patriarch will not ask all the questions when he manages family affairs. Chen Xianhe doesn't care about such issues as the mortal population structure and the distribution of fertile land within the clan. In Chen Xian's eyes, the most important goal of the Chen clan on Shuanghu Island is to breed a spiritual vein that belongs to the Chen family. Only in this way, the Chen family can let go of their hands to cultivate younger generations and expand the family cultivator group. Otherwise, even if the younger generation with spiritual roots is discovered, the Chen family will not be able to let him embark on the path of cultivation. Because the family now has only one spiritual eye, it cannot support more monks to practice. There are more than 3,000 members of the Chen family. According to the probability of a mortal being born with a spiritual root, probably one of the 100 mortals has a spiritual root. In other words, the current Qin clan hides at least 30 seeds of immortal cultivation with spiritual roots. But suffering from lack of spiritual energy, they could not let them embark on the path of cultivation. Even if they were forcibly brought on the path of cultivation, the final result of these people could only be to betray the family and become a loose cultivator. A long time. Qin Daoxian said, 3 things. He raised 3 fingers. First, I ordered the county government to start immediately to investigate the detailed demographic structure of the family. I want to know the number of children under the age of 10, the number of young adults between the ages of 10 and 40, and the number of young adults between the ages of 40 and 60. The number of middle-aged and elderly people, and the elderly population over the age of 60. In addition, the number of fertile couples in the family and the number of unmarried males should also be investigated in detail. Hearing this, Chen Ji nodded like pounding garlic. Second. Who is responsible for public building matters in Changping County? Young Patriarch, his subordinates are the generals who are in charge of civil engineering construction in Changping County. Behind Chen Ji, an old man in his 60s walked out tremblingly and said nervously. Very well, you take note. From now on, investigate the land area of Shuanghu Island, as well as the approximate distribution of freshwater resources and mineral resources, and draw up a detailed map and submit it. Subordinates obey. Wait until the old man leaves. This third thing. Qin Daoxian glanced at Jiang Zuoyu, who was about to retire. It's still your task. The figure of the old man who had just withdrawn immediately stopped, and then left the team again, bowing and waiting. How many craftsmen are there in the family now? Chief Patriarch, there are 271 craftsmen in the family, including 184 construction craftsmen, 26 carpenters, 41 blacksmiths, and 20 other craftsmen. When it comes to the craftsmen in the clan, the older ones will be very precious. Hearing that there are 184 construction craftsmen, Chen Daoxian's face finally looks better. Very well, the third thing is that the family wants to build an industrial area. Regarding the idea of Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone, Chen Daoxian had this idea 5 years ago. It's just that the Rongling furnace hadn't been developed by him at that time. And the most important force in this world is the immortal cultivator, and Qin Daoxian can't give up the basics and let the Qin family realize the industrialization step by step, starting with the steam engine. Besides, even if the industrialization achievements of the previous life can be established, it will take hundreds of years. By that time, Qin Daoxian, who had devoted himself to it, would have been cold, and he would not have the energy and time to practice. He hadn't forgotten what was most fundamental to him. In addition to inheriting the legacy of Chen's ancestors, Qin Daoxian's development and growth of the family is also an important reason, and that is to provide the necessary resources for his cultivation. Well known. The further back the monks practice, the more resources they consume. Wealth, partner, law, land. It can be summed up in one word: resource. Industrial area. The veteran Zuoyue was stunned, another word he had never heard before. Qin Daoxian could not explain to him what an industrial zone was, but only told him the land use standards for the industrial zone. Qin Daoxian, who is a traveler, is clear. The establishment of an industrial zone is not a simple matter. It needs all the conditions to be mature in order to do so. First of all, the industrial zone needs to have a leading industry to drive other upstream and downstream industries in the industrial zone to form a complete industrial chain. Qin Daoxian was able to fulfill this condition. The magic weapon factory that is about to be built is such a leading industry. In addition to leading industries, the establishment of industrial zones must have policy support. This condition is not a problem for Qin Daoxian, who is completely eloquent. As for the remaining industrial land, a complete social service system, and the construction of factories, this is also not a big problem for Qin, who can concentrate all his strengths. The only problem now is the Qin family has no qualified industrial workers. although the magic weapon factory to be built is just a small workshop the size of a sparrow. But Qin Daoxian estimated that at least 12 to 15 mature Rongling furnace operators would be needed to cooperate with him in order to produce instruments with maximum efficiency. Think of this. Qin Daoxian waved his hand and said, Qin Yekao and Qin Liangyu stay, and the others can retreat first. Everyone glanced at Qin Daoxian, then looked at each other again, and said, Young patriarch, your subordinates retire. Wait until the people leave. Only Qin Daoxian, Qin Liangyu and an unknown veteran were left in the entire ancestral hall. Qin Daoxian glanced at the roster of county officials and found the name of the veteran Zuyu, Qin Beiwang. As the head of the copper mine, Qin Liangyu is the person in the entire family who is most familiar with Qin Daoxian. Not only was Qin Daoxian in charge of inspecting the output of copper ore mines every year before, but also because Qin Daoxian often lacked copper ore in refining equipment, he went to the mine to beat the autumn wind. After coming and going, the two became more familiar with each other. Of course, this kind of familiarity is what Qin Liangyu thinks. In Qin Daoxian's heart, his mine chief is not much different from other Qin clan members. However, with the violent mining of copper ore during this period of time, the copper ore veins were completely exhausted. Qin Liangyu, the head of the copper mine, also lost his former position. Although he still stood side by side with Qin Ji, the county magistrate in the clan. But Qin Liangyu knew in his heart that after losing his identity as the head of the copper mine, he could no longer be compared with Qin Ji. Qin Daoxian didn't care about Qin Liangji's thoughts, but turned his attention to Qin Beiwang. Qin Yekao, did you understand what I said about the location of the industrial zone? My subordinates understand. Qin Beiwang with grey temples nodded hurriedly. In addition to the site selection of the industrial zone, there is also the construction of the factory building. With that said, Qin Daoxian took out a stack of blueprints from the storage bag. This is the structural design of the factory that he has carefully drawn over the past 5 years. As an old craftsman, Qin Beiwang, although he was new to this design drawing, quickly understood the factory building drawn on this drawing. He nodded immediately and said, if the workshop's house is built in this style, our craftsmen will have no problem. Hearing this promise, Qin Daoxian felt better. How long will it take for you to build this factory? 6 months is enough. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian frowned. Why does it take so long? Young patriarch, according to the material requirements on this drawing, high-quality bluestone materials are needed to build the workshop, and there are not many masons in the clan, so the speed of polishing bluestone may be a little slow. In the end, Qin Beiwang's voice became smaller and smaller. Chapter 31. Half a year is too long. Qin Daoxian shook his head. He looked at Qin Beiwang who was silent, and thought for a while, forget it, I'll go to your stone processing workshop later. Yes, young patriarch. Hearing this, Qin Beiwang breathed a sigh of relief. After explaining to Qin Yekao, who was in charge of building the family's public buildings, Qin Daoxian turned to look at Qin Liangyu, the former head of the copper mine. Seeing Qin Daoxian turning his attention to him, Qin Liangyu had a pleasing smile on his face. Director Qin, how is the mine now? Listening to Qin Daoxian talking about the mine, Qin Liangji's smiling face collapsed. He said in a slightly complaining tone, Patriarch Ji Shao, all the mines have stopped working now, and the workers in the mines have all gone home to rest. Oh, by the way, the copper ore mined in the mine is kept in the storage room. During this time, I have been personally responsible for guarding, to ensure that there are no problems. After hearing these words, Qin Daoxian nodded noncommittally. This is Shuanghu Island. All the people living on the island are from the Qin clan. In addition, only monks can use the copper ore. Ordinary people will naturally not steal the copper ore. However, after seeing that even though the copper mine is closed, Qin Liangyu is still sticking to the mine. This attitude is very satisfactory to Qin Daoxian. Thinking of this, his eyes softened a bit. Mr. Qin, you've worked hard for this time. Hearing this, Chen Liangyu said with a sincere expression, it's all for the family, I don't dare to praise the young patriarch. After pondering for a while, Chen Daoxian continued, well, they'll give you a new job. If this job is done, it will definitely be no worse than when you were the head of the copper mine in the future. Chen Daoxian saw what Chen Liangyu was thinking at a glance, and said with a smile, I don't know what you think. Hearing that a new errand was handed over to him, Chen Liangyu almost jumped up with joy. He forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said in a trembling voice, Chen Liangyu is willing to go through fire and water for the family, no matter what. You don't have to go through fire and water, Chen Daoxian waved his hand with a smile, and then his face became serious, I want you to select a group of 16 to 18-year-old males in your family, requiring literacy, smart and clever. You choose 15 people first, and gather in the family's fire room tomorrow morning. As ordered. Chen Liangyu cupped his hands and said excitedly. Watching Chen Liangyu leave, Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Beiwang who was waiting on the side, and said, let's go to the stone processing workshop first. Yes, young patriarch. Chongping County, Stone Processing Workshop. As the only stone processing workshop in Chongping County, there are 3 types of stone bricks produced here. They are redstone bricks, whitestone bricks, and the best quality bluestone bricks. Along the way, Chen Beiwang, an old craftsman, introduced Chen Daoxian as he walked, this is the family's stone workshop. Every household in Chongping County produces stone bricks from here. This workshop is only about a few hundred square meters, and there are only a dozen craftsmen working. Although everyone is tired and sweaty, the efficiency is still appallingly low. Chen Beiwang continued to introduce, our stone materials here require quarriers to extract raw stones from the mountains, and then process them into finished bricks through workshops. With that said, Chen Beiwang picked up a processed blue brick from the basket next to the craftsman and handed it to Chen Daoxian, young patriarch, please take a look, in front of you. This blue brick is about 7 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 2 inches thick. This is the best stone brick the Chen family can make. Compared with the ancient times of the earth, the Chen clan of Shuanghu Island does not seem to have mastered the method of firing adobe. Of course, this is also related to the fact that the various resources in the immortal world are much richer than the earth. There is no need for ordinary people to burn bricks at all, and all kinds of stone and wood are inexhaustible. It is also beautiful and practical, and burning bricks naturally looks very tasteless. Seeing the work efficiency of the group of craftsmen in front of him, Chen Daoxian finally knew why it took half a year to build a factory. It is not that the craftsmen who build the factory are slow, but the supply of raw materials is insufficient. After thinking about it, Chen Daoxian turned his head and asked, can the raw materials from the quarry be supplied? After hearing this, Chen Beiwang didn't react for a while. After a while, he nodded sharply, yes. The work in the quarry is all brute force work, so it's easy to find someone. Finally heard good news. Chen Daoxian instructed, give you half a day, you go to Qinji, and let him organize the tribe to transport all the raw stones from the quarry back. Although he didn't know what medicine Chen Daoxian sold in the gourd, Chen Beiwang did not dare to disobey the young patriarch who had just taken control of the family. Soon, Qinji, who was organizing an investigation of the family's population, received an order from Chen Daoxian. Facing Chen Daoxian's order, Qinji did not dare to neglect. Immediately, they organized manpower to transport raw stones to the quarry. Fortunately, most of the mortals on Shuanghu Island were warriors of the mortal realm. In one afternoon, more than 3,000 square raw stones were transported back to the courtyard of the stone processing workshop by the Chen clan. Afternoon. Outside the courtyard of the stone processing workshop was full of onlookers. They were all temporary workers organized by Qinji to transport the stones. No one knew what the young patriarch was going to do. In the courtyard, Qin Daoxian looked at the mountains of bluestone in front of him, sighed in his heart, and wanted to be a coolie again. He slightly took a sip of Dantian True Qi, and the cyan stone was suspended in mid-air under the control of True Qi. Immediately after, the red shadow flying sword flew out of the storage bag, and the flying sword shone with aura. Brush brush. Sword lights shone in the courtyard of the stone processing workshop. Blink of an eye. The huge bluestone stone with a square meter was cut into small bricks by Feijian. This. Outside the courtyard, when the Qin clan saw this scene, they all had a ghostly expression on their faces. Although they knew that the monks were powerful, the fairy-like scene in front of them was beyond the limit of their imagination. Just as Qin Daoxian Feijian cut, the blue stone in the courtyard became less and less, and the blue bricks piled up more and more. Only one afternoon's work. The 3,000 square stones were all cut into blue bricks of good quality by Qin Daoxian by himself. Golem. Chen Beiwang stood in the yard and swallowed unconsciously. He now finally knows why the patriarch of the Qin clan can only be a monk, not a mortal. With so many stones, even if all the masons in the Qin family work overtime, it will take at least several months to process all the stones into bricks. But now, it has only been 3 hours since the full calculation, and all the stones have been processed by the young patriarch alone. This kind of power of ghosts and gods can't be compared by mortals. Thinking of this, Chen Beiwang became more and more in awe of Qin Daoxian, the young patriarch. Chapter 32. Call. After a busy afternoon, Qin Daoxian felt a burst of satisfaction when he saw the neatly stacked bluestone bricks in front of him. He turned around, looked at Qin Beiwang next to him, and said, "Are you enough bricks to build the factory now?" "Enough, enough, absolutely enough." Qin Beiwang nodded stiffly. "Then, I ask you, Zhou Chao, to build the factory within a month. Can you complete this task?" "Can." Qin Beiwang glanced at Qin Daoxian, for fear that the other party would not believe him. He emphasized, "It's definitely possible." "That's good." Qin Daoxian nodded with satisfaction, and when he used the wind-controlling technique, he walked away in front of everyone. Before leaving, his voice sounded in Qin Beiwang's ear, "Don't forget to draw a map of Shuanghu Island." "Yes, young patriarch." Qin Beiwang bowed deeply and said. After a stick of incense, Qin Daoxian, who was riding in the wind, returned to his cave in the Copper Mountains. "This time I went to Guang'an for more than 2 months, and the cave is still spotless." He knew that this was the result of the family sending someone to clean it every day. Enter the training room in the cave. After careful inspection of the spiritual eye, it was found that the spiritual eye was intact, and there was no phenomenon of spiritual exhaustion. Qin Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. As twilight gradually fell, the night in the mountains was as cold as water, but Qin Daoxian turned a deaf ear. I saw him sitting cross-legged on the futon intently. In front of him is a brocade box and a jade bottle, which are the 2 treasures he got from Guang'an Prefecture to aid his cultivation, the water spirit beads and the qi-gathering pill. According to the records in the ancient books of the clan, qi-gathering pill can help cultivators to double the efficiency of refining spiritual qi, allowing the cultivator of the upper spiritual root to train at a speed comparable to that of the cultivator of the spiritual root in just 1 month. I don't know if it's true or not. Qin Daoxian gently played with the jade bottle in his hand, and then placed it in front of him. He then opened the brocade box again, and a water spirit ball the size of a marble appeared in front of him. Shui Lingzhu can purify spiritual energy, so that monks can improve the speed of refining spiritual energy. What's more rare is that water spirit beads are not like medicine pills, they will not have erysipelas, and they can always help practice. Qin Daoxian glanced at the Shui Lingzhu, and then at the jade bottle containing the qi-gathering pill, and took a deep breath. I don't know how fast my cultivation speed will be if I use these 2 treasures to assist my cultivation at the same time. Ponder. Qin Daoxian opened the jade bottle, poured out a qi-gathering pill, threw it into his mouth and swallowed it. At the same time, he opened the brocade box again, and guided the water spirit beads in the brocade box to absorb the aura emerging from the spiritual eyes. Then, a purer aura was fed back by the water spirit beads. C. Chen Daoxian didn't dare to waste the pure spiritual energy in front of him, and immediately started the Guiyuan Gong to absorb the pure spiritual energy exhaled by the water spirit beads. With this pure aura entering Chen Daoxian's body, immediately, every cell in his body cheered. The aura first enters the human Bodhis meridians from Tianling Baihui, and then runs through the meridians of the whole body, slowly refining the aura, converting it into true qi, and storing it in the dantian. Chen Daoxian has been carrying out such refining steps for more than 5 years. Chen Daoxian is confident that even if it is not consciously controlled, he can use his instinct to refine spiritual energy. But today, Chen Daoxian felt different. The speed of cultivation is really fast. If Chen Daoxian's usual speed of refining spiritual energy is 1 point, then the speed of refining spiritual energy today is a full 5 points. He didn't exaggerate in the slightest, the speed was just that fast. So much so that he faintly felt that the spiritual energy provided by the spiritual eye was somewhat insufficient. How come so fast? After running for a big week, Chen Daoxian opened his eyes and said with a shocked expression, "No wonder the cultivators are so fascinated by the elixir, and they attach more importance to the elixir than the magic weapon. If it were me, I would choose that too." No wonder he was shocked, the speed of cultivation was too fast. Compared with before, the results of his cultivation in the past 2 hours were on par with the usual 2 or 3 days of hard cultivation, and his cultivation speed was 4 or 5 times faster. Which monk in the world can resist this temptation? Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian did not dare to waste time, and continued to close his eyes to refine his spiritual energy. The next day, after feeling that the meridians began to ache, Chen Daoxian ended his day of practice. "Last night, I actually practiced for an hour longer than before." After opening his eyes, Chen Daoxian counted the time with his fingers and said silently, "You must know that cultivators do not have to eat, drink or sleep every day. The more time they spend in the practice, the better. For monks, the daily practice time should be appropriate. The so-called appropriate amount of practice time depends on the physique of different monks. For example, Chen Daoxian, the best time for his daily practice is about 4 hours, that is, 8 hours. About as long as mortals sleep at night. Therefore, Chen Daoxian usually chooses to practice at night. If this time is exceeded, there may not be any problems in the short term, but in the long run, it will cause irreversible damage to the cultivator's physical meridians, making the road dusty. And last night, Chen Daoxian obviously exceeded the normal cultivation time. However, the reason why this happened was because he practiced so much last night that he neglected the practice time. Of course, the results of such selfless cultivation are also gratifying. Chen Daoxian found that at this cultivation speed, he would be able to break through to the 4th level of qi refining in at most half a year. After breaking through to the 4th level of qi refining, Chen Daoxian's strength must have a qualitative leap. At least his envoy Fixuajin will no longer be like the initial stage of qi refining, where he can only use a few swords, and his true qi will not be enough, and he will be slaughtered by others. He estimated that after breaking through to the 4th level of qi refining, thanks to the growth of infuriating energy and the skyrocketing spiritual awareness, he can at least kill the enemy with more than 10 swords before running out of infuriating energy. People are happy when they are happy. Chen Daoxian's cultivation went smoothly, his path was smooth, and the smiles on his face naturally increased. After half a column of incense, when Chen Daoxian flew to the family's old fire room with Yu Fengshu, he found that there were already a group of 16 or 17-year-old teenagers waiting on the Jade Square in the fire room. "See this group of teenagers who are the same age as me." Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Liangyu with a smile, and said, "I'm sorry for making you wait for a long time." Hearing this apology, Chen Liangyu suddenly looked flattered and said, "Why did the young patriarch say this? It should be that we came earlier than the appointed time." Chen Daoxian had no intention of arguing with him on this topic, so he changed the topic and said, "Are these people the apprentices you hired?" Young patriarch, yes. Chen Liangyu bowed. These young men can read and are very clever, so they should be good enough to be used by the young patriarch. Although Chen Liangyu didn't know what Chen Daoxuan's intention was to call these youngsters. But he knew that the time for Chen Liangjia's transfer had arrived. Chapter 33. Squeak. Pushing open the heavy bronze door of the fire room, Chen Daoxian turned around and said, "Come in." Hearing this, everyone filed in. As soon as they approached the ground fire room, everyone felt a heat wave blowing towards them. After a while, everyone was sweating profusely. Chen Daoxian glanced at the group of clansmen who were about the same age as him. They were basically the mortal realm cultivation base on the 4th and 5th floors of the day after tomorrow. Facing the scorching heat of the fire room, it was inevitable that it would be unbearable. Is this the family's fire room? Chen Liangyu glanced at the fire room, which was hundreds of square meters in size, and muttered. The fire room, as the stronghold of the Chen family on Shuanghu Island, has always been closed to ordinary people. Except for Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe, the entire family is not qualified to set foot here. Now Chen Daoxian took them to this legendary place. How to keep everyone from getting excited? Chen Liangyu is a little better. After all, he used to be the head of the copper mine, and he has seen a little of the world. But the group of 16 or 17-year-olds he brought with him did not have such a good temperament. Despite everyone's repeated restraint, there were still bursts of whispering sounds. Glancing at everyone, Chen Daoxian walked straight to the silver-white melting furnace placed in the center of the fire room. Cough cough. He coughed lightly, suppressing the voices of the crowd. Seeing that the scene was quiet, Chen Daoxian continued, "This is one of the most central places in the family, the fire room." Careful Chen Liangyu noticed Chen Daoxuan's words. Once. He suppressed his temper and continued to listen. The fire room is where the monks refine their instruments. Today, what I'm going to teach you is how to use this Rongling furnace to assist the monks in refining the instruments. What is the magic weapon? Is it a baby used by immortals? I don't know. Chen Yunsheng, do you know? The young man named Chen Yunsheng was the eldest among the crowd, already 18 years old. Judging from its appearance, it is somewhat similar to Chen Liangyu, the former head of the copper mine who was standing in front of everyone. Hearing the clan's question, Chen Yunsheng pondered for a moment, and said, "The magic weapon is the weapon used by the immortals." Did you hear what the young patriarch did in the stone processing workshop yesterday? At that time, the young patriarch used the magic weapon. Ah. So that fairy sword is a magic weapon. Brother Yunsheng, you are amazing, you know a lot. Listening to the voices of discussion from the crowd, Chen Daoxian hadn't spoken yet, but Chen Liangjia's face sank. What are you arguing about? Why don't you listen carefully? And you, Chen Yunsheng, talk again and see how I'll clean up your kid when I go back. Chen Liangyu reprimanded in a low voice. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxian didn't care much. After all, he was a young man. If every young man in his clan was as mature as him, it would be abnormal. Under Chen Liangjia's reprimand, the scene returned to quiet again. Seeing that everyone was quiet, Chen Daoxian began to tell everyone the operation principle of the Rongling furnace. Fortunately, Chen Liangyu selected all talented and intelligent young people, and the principle of Rongling furnace was quickly understood by everyone. As soon as Chen Daoxian finished explaining the principle of Rongling furnace, he saw a young man raise his hand. Do you have any question? He pointed at the boy who raised his hand. Young patriarch, although he was ready to repeat it again and again, Chen Yunsheng still felt a huge pressure when he was asked by the young patriarch. Under this pressure, Qin Yunsheng took a deep breath and said, "What you mean just now is that we need to feed the spiritual ore from this feeding port of the furnace, and then control and adjust the temperature in the furnace through the operating rod, so as to achieve is it to refine spiritual ore?" "You understand it well." Chen Daoxian nodded. "In that case, only 2 people at most can operate this melting furnace. Why do we need so many of us now?" This sentence can be regarded as asking the voice of all the teenagers present. Not only are they honored to be able to work under the young patriarch, but everyone also bears the expectations of the elders in the family. If they are eliminated in less than a day, they will not be able to raise their heads in the clan after returning. Seeing everyone like this, Chen Daoxian knew everyone's worries and comforted, "Don't worry, Rongling stoves are far more than this one, and there will only be more and more Rongling stoves in the family in the future." But, Chen Daoxian changed his words, "Don't think that if there are too many melting furnaces, you will be able to perfunctory things. If you don't perform well, you will still be eliminated." Hearing this warning, everyone's originally relaxed mood became tense again. Seeing everyone regain their concentration, Chen Daoxian continued, "Some of you said just now that it only takes 2 people at most to operate a melting furnace. He is basically right." He paused. "A melting furnace will be equipped with 2 workers, a stuffer and a furnace operator. The filler is responsible for screening, weighing, and proportioning the spiritual ore, and then putting it into the feeding port. The furnace operator is responsible for controlling the temperature of the melting furnace, refining the spiritual ore, and transferring the refined products from the furnace in time." Everyone can see from the operation process that the work of the filler is relatively simple, and any person can basically be competent, but it is the furnace operator that is difficult. The furnace operator not only needs to adjust the temperature of the melting furnace according to the time at any time, but also needs to take out the finished materials in the furnace at the right time, otherwise the spirit ore will become waste after being smelted in the furnace for a long time. After listening to Chen Daoxuan's narration, everyone immediately understood the importance of furnace operators. Not surprisingly, no one wanted to be a stuffer, and everyone went to work as a furnace worker, especially after hearing that the monthly salary of a furnace worker was 3 taels of silver, twice that of a stuffer. Seeing everyone eager to try, Chen Daoxian smiled and said, "Don't be in a hurry to be happy. Let's watch me operate the Rongling furnace. These 3 taels of silver are not so easy to get." After finishing speaking, Chen Daoxian took out 2 kinds of spiritual ores, black iron and red copper ore, which were used to refine the red shadow flying sword from the storage bag. After skillfully putting the 2 well-matched spirit ores into the furnace, Chen Daoxian operated the melting spirit furnace. 15 teenagers formed a group and asked Chen Daoxian questions from time to time. Learning time is fast. In a blink of an eye. 4 hours passed. As a monk, Chen Daoxian doesn't feel hungry, but these teenagers are different. They are all mortals and need to eat. Although their hearts were hot, they were so hungry that their chests and backs were long ago. Seeing that learning is over, Chen Liangyu, who was temporarily serving as a logistics staff, brought a lunch box for everyone and said softly, "Young patriarch, let everyone have a meal and then learn." "Ah." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian reacted, "Everyone has been studying for a day." Immediately, he said apologetically, "I was negligent. Everyone eats first, and after eating, I will continue to tell you about the technique of using the joystick to control the temperature." When the boys heard this, their eyes lit up and nodded hastily. Chapter 34. Next. A whole week. Chen Daoxian spent almost all of his time in the fire room, teaching the 15 teenagers the skills of controlling the melting furnace. Hard work pays off. Under Chen Daoxuan's careful teaching and many young people's dedicated study, the results of this week are very gratifying, and some young people have been able to independently extract spiritual or materials. In the fire room, the heat wave hits people. A group of sweaty teenagers, topless, surrounded the Rongling stove, watching another teenager control the Rongling stove. only different from a week ago. The boy who controlled the Rongling furnace this time was not Qin Daoxian, but the boy named Qin Yunsheng. I saw Qin Yunsheng staring intently at the Rongling furnace, turning his head from time to glance at the hourglass used for timing. Different from when the monks use the melting furnace, they can also use the consciousness to observe the state of the materials in the furnace, so as to adjust the temperature in time. When mortals use the Rongling furnace, they can only take timed and quantitative methods to adjust the temperature in the furnace in strict accordance with the production steps, so that the spiritual ore will not be smelted and discarded. Although he had done a lot of preparation in his mind, Qin Yunsheng felt a lot of pressure when he got started. He glanced at Qin Daoxian not far away, and found that the other party pursed his lips and said nothing, without any intention of pointing. Seeing this, Qin Yunsheng gritted his teeth, his heart was stunned, and he operated directly according to the operation manual given by Qin Daoxian, and stopped thinking about it. Minutes passed by. As the Rongling furnace ran smoothly as usual, Qin Yunsheng's heart gradually eased. Seeing that the other party was no longer nervous, the corner of Qin Daoxian's mouth slightly raised an arc. He had originally planned to fail Qin Yunsheng's refinement, but he did not expect that the other party would succeed the first time. Using the melting furnace to extract spiritual ore is not an easy task for mortals without spiritual consciousness. It is absolutely necessary to operate in accordance with the specifications in the operation manual, and there can be no single error. Obviously, Qin Yunsheng did it. Through the spirit melting furnace, Qin Daoxian observed that a group of crimson liquids fused together. After the aura on the red liquid mass was completely fused, the spiritual pressure in the furnace suddenly soared, and the melting furnace was affected by the spiritual pressure, and there was a sudden screeching sound. Wow! Hearing this familiar chirping sound, Qin Yunsheng felt ecstatic in his heart. He knew that he had succeeded. I saw that he immediately controlled the operating lever, and under the action of the floating formation, the red liquid mass was transferred out of the melting furnace. Watching the red liquid mass fly out from the discharge port of the Rongling furnace, Qin Daoxian smiled slightly, and immediately ran his true qi to take over the red liquid mass, followed by shaping and melting it. An hour later, a bright red flying sword appeared in front of everyone. It was the first-order low-grade flying sword recorded in the family's weapon refining heritage, the Red Shadow Flying Sword. Oh! Great! Success! Ha! Seeing this scene, all the teenagers at the scene danced and burst into violent cheers. And Qin Yunsheng, who successfully operated the Rongling furnace, was surrounded by them like a hero. Even Chen Liangyu, who had been listening to the class with them for a week, had a smile on his serious face at the moment. When his eyes turned to Qin Yunsheng, there was a hint of pride in his eyes. Qin Daoxian seemed to notice Chen Liangyi's eyes, and smiled and nodded at him. Seeing the affirmative eyes of the young patriarch, Chen Liangyu was even more excited. Down these 7 days, Chen Liangyu clearly knew that compared with the family's former copper mine, this magical instrument factory that was about to be built was many times more important. It can even be said that this magic weapon factory will be the lifeblood of the Chen family on Shuanghu Island in the future. During this period of time, he handled logistics, arranged time for everyone to study and eat, and his busy performance was all watched by Qin Daoxian. If nothing else, he is likely to be the factory manager of this magical instrument factory in the future. Chen Liangyu thought about it, the young patriarch seemed to use this word. While he was dreaming, Qin Daoxian's voice rang in everyone's ears. It's done very well. It seems that you have worked very hard during this period of time and lived up to the expectations of my family and me. Qin Daoxian patted Qin Yunsheng on the shoulder and praised. After getting along for this period of time, everyone's attitude towards Qin Daoxian has changed from the original reverence to the current respect. In the eyes of everyone, Qin Daoxian not only possesses unimaginable power, but is also a man of profound knowledge. It seems that there is no reason in this world that he does not understand. During this period of time, no matter what kind of question everyone raised, it seemed that they could find the correct answer in Qin Dao Xian, which made everyone identify with the heir of the patriarch from the bottom of their hearts. Praise Qin Yunsheng. He then appointed Qin Yunsheng as the teacher of the 15 teenagers and continued to teach everyone how to control the Rongling furnace. And he took a break from the heavy teaching task. After explaining everyone, Qin Dao Xian turned to look at Chen Liangyu and said, "Mr. Chen, I have something to look for you." When Chen Liangyu heard this, he seemed to hear Xianle, and his bones were brittle. He hurriedly lowered his head and said, "Yes, young patriarch." The two walked out of the fire room one after the other. Qin Dao Xian used the wind fighting technique, rolled up the figures of him and Chen Liangyu, and flew down the mountain. This was Chen Liangji's first time flying in the sky, and he was a little panicked for a while. But after all, he is a warrior of the 7th floor of the innate, and he quickly adjusted his mentality and stood beside Qin Dao Xian obediently. Seeing his appearance, Qin Dao Xian nodded with satisfaction and said, "Mr. Chen, I have seen your performance during this period of time, and now, on behalf of the family, I will appoint you as the first magic weapon factory. Long. Your main task in the future is to adjust the production time of the factory's Rongling furnace according to my working hours, and increase the factory's output of magical instruments." "Yes." Liangyu promises to complete the task. Chen Liangyu said excitedly. During this period of time, he learned from behind Qin Dao Xian, so that he understood what Qin Dao Xian meant by adjusting the production time of the Rongling furnace. The Rongling furnace produces semi-finished red liquid mass, which generally takes 4 hours. In other words, before Qin Dao Xian began to enter the factory, he would have to advance 4 hours earlier, and arrange for a Rongling furnace to enter the working state every hour. Only in this way can Qin Dao Xian continuously refine the red shadow flying sword. According to the efficiency of refining a flying sword in 1 hour, Qin Dao Xian can refine at most 4 to 5 flying swords a day without delaying the management of family affairs and affecting his own cultivation. Of course, this is only theoretical data. The specific situation will not be known until the instrument factory is completed and put into actual production. But no matter what, the production efficiency under this production method is dozens of times faster than that of traditional craftsmanship. In the next days, more and more teenagers have mastered the method of controlling the melting furnace, and they have transformed from ordinary apprentices to qualified furnace operators. Of course, in this process, it is inevitable that the spirit ore will be refined and discarded. It is even foreseeable that in the future, after the magic weapon factory enters the production process, there will be cases where the furnace operator will refine the spiritual ore to waste. But these losses are completely negligible for the Chen family, who has made the leap from handmade to machine-made. A month later, just when Qin Dao Xian refined the 5th Rongling furnace, another good news came to his ears. The factory building of the family magic tool factory, completed. Chapter 35. The industrial zone planned by Qin Dao Xian is located in the vast plain area east of Changping County. From here, if you continue to the east, you can reach the only port on Shuanghu Island. The reason why Qin Dao Xian placed the industrial zone here is not only to make land planning in advance for the expansion of the industrial zone in the future, but also to facilitate the import and export of magical instruments and spiritual or raw materials. The only inconvenience is that this is a suburb outside Changping County, surrounded by plain wasteland. Except for a dilapidated official road leading directly to Changping County, there are no other buildings. Obviously, the environment here is not very friendly to the workers of the magic tool factory who are about to work here. However, this kind of problem cannot be completely solved even in the modern Earth, let alone the Chen family in Shuanghu Island, where the conditions are even worse. To solve these problems, the premise is to do a good job in the construction of various infrastructures. For example, In addition to factories, the industrial zone also needs to build staff dormitories, medical halls, and various supporting shopping, entertainment and other consumer places. After all, people are not machines. Even if the Chen clan can endure hardship, Chen Daoxian does not want to squeeze them too much. Because he knows that everyone may be able to endure the painful environment when the conditions are difficult, but when the family develops and grows, Chen Daoxian will continue to squeeze, which will inevitably make the people of the Chen clan unhappy. Although ordinary mortals dare not resist head-on in the face of the powerful power of monks, a passive saboteur cannot escape. Therefore, Chen Daoxian must consider the various welfare benefits of the workers in the magic tool factory in advance, so as to avoid them being ineffective in the production process and causing unnecessary losses to the family. As soon as Chen Daoxian learned that the magical instrument factory was completed, he rushed over by Yufengfei. When he arrived at the scene, everyone was already waiting in the factory. Chen Daoxian stood out of thin air. Looking down from a height, the area of the factory below was about 1,000 square meters, which was much more spacious than the family's old fire room. Lowering his body in front of the crowd, Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Beiwang with a tired face and said, "Chen Yekeo, thank you for your hard work." Hearing this compliment, Chen Beiwang immediately showed an expression of inexplicable excitement and cupped his hands. This old man is already 62 this year, and most of his body is buried in the soil. I didn't expect to be able to build this wonder for the family. The old man is happy and it is too late. Where will he feel hard? Hearing these words from the bottom of his heart, Chen Daoxian nodded. However, the capable ones will work hard, and you will not be able to relax as Chow Chow. In addition to the factory building, there are also the staff's dormitory area, various buildings in the factory area, and Chongping district. The roads connecting the county to the industrial area and the port are all waiting for you, as Chow, to complete, really. When Chen Beiwang heard this, his old face suddenly collapsed. Immediately afterwards, his hunched body was full of fighting spirit again, and he said, "As long as the family doesn't dislike the old man's use of bones, the old man is willing to die of exhaustion in his position." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but respect the old man in front of him. In the Chen family on Shuanghu Island, even ordinary mortals are all thinking about developing and growing the family. Such a family, why not be strong? After encouraging everyone, Chen Daoxian stepped into the factory building under the stars of a group of people. The internal structure of the factory building and the design drawings are generally the same. There are a total of 10 separate compartments, each of which is about 100 square meters. All the compartments are connected to each other, which is convenient for Chen Daoxian to go from the previous workshop to the next one. After some inspection, Chen Daoxian found that the Rongling furnace was about to be installed now. As for the formation that guides the fire pulse, that is, the core formation for the construction of the earth fire chamber, Chen Daoxian had already completed the layout shortly after the construction of the outer frame of the factory building. Therefore, after everyone entered the factory building, they felt a heat wave similar to the ground fire room hitting them. Fortunately, both Chen Liangyu and the others, and Chen Beiwang and his party, have become accustomed to this kind of environment, and no one complained about being tired. After visiting the factory, Chen Daoxian nodded with satisfaction. Very good. Now I announce that the first phase of the Chen's artifact factory is officially completed. After speaking, he took the lead in applauding. Although they didn't know what Chen Daoxian's action meant, everyone still imitated and applauded. Seeing everyone's unfamiliar actions, Chen Daoxian sighed in his heart. Shaking his head, he threw the ridiculous thoughts out of his mind. Chen Liangyu, who was on the side, came over at this moment and asked in a low voice, "Young patriarch, what should we name our magic tool factory? It's not like it's called Chen's Magic Tool Workshop, right?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxian glanced at him, pondered for a moment, and said, "Let's call it the Hongyin Feijian Factory. Our factory will only produce one kind of magic weapon for a long time, and that is the Feijian." For the Red Shadow Feijian, Not only Chen Liangyu, but also many apprentices who followed Chen Daoxian to learn to control the Rongling furnace have already seen the refining of the red shadow Feijian many times. Although everyone is immortal and can't understand the formation inscription and various refining techniques, everyone is still very familiar with the red flying sword itself. Therefore, for Chen Daoxian to give the magic tool factory such a name, everyone thinks it is quite in line with the products to be produced. The factory building is completed. The next step is to install the Rongling furnace. This work can only be done by Chen Daoxian. After all, the Rongling furnace is about a zhang long in diameter and weighs dozens of tons. It is difficult for even a congenital warrior to move it. Not to mention moving it from the fire room in the Copper Mountains. After all, these two places are considered a straight line distance, at least tens of kilometers away. Took a day's work. Chen Daoxian held the Rongling furnace with his infuriating energy, and traveled to and from the fire room and the magic weapon factory 5 times, and finally placed all the Rongling furnaces in each production workshop. Next, it is to prepare the raw materials of spiritual ore and enter the long-awaited production link. Chen Daoxian purchased a total of 6,721 spirit stones from Guang'an Prefecture, including the arrangement of the ground fire room formation. Among them, 3,000 spirit stones were spent on the arrangement of the formation materials for guiding the fire veins, and the remaining 3,721 spirit stones were spent on the purchase of spirit ore. Since Chen Daoxian's main purpose to refine this time is the red shadow flying sword in the family heritage, he bought a full 1,200 kilograms, or 0.6 tons, of the red copper ore alone. Compared with the tens of thousands of tons and hundreds of thousands of tons of metal ore in the previous life, 0.6 tons of copper ore sounds like a family. But for the Qin family on Shuanghu Island, this is the most spiritual ore that can be bought by emptying the family. In addition to the red copper ore, the remaining 121 spirit stones were used to buy cheap black iron ore. As an auxiliary material for refining the red shadow flying sword, Chen Daoxian also bought a full 121 kilograms. According to Chen Daoxian's experience in refining the red shadow flying sword, to refine a mouthful of the red shadow Feijian, it takes 10 kilograms of red copper ore and 1 kilogram of black iron ore, and the raw material cost is about 31 spirit stones. And the price of a first-order low-grade flying sword in Guang'an Prefecture hovered around 50 spirit stones. At first glance, the profits don't seem too high. But don't forget, the magic tools sold in the Guang'an House Sangxiafang City are all second-hand goods that have been eliminated by the children of the big clan. They are all defective products with damaged aura and a short service life. Chapter 36. Shape, melt, and repeat. Soon. 5 hours passed. Call. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Chen Daoxian only felt relieved. He has been refining tools for so long, and he has never been as happy as today. He found that when he replaced the most complicated and labor-intensive stage of refining materials in the refining tool with the melting furnace, the refining tool actually became extremely easy. It's like a strong man who originally carried several hundred kilograms of heavy goods unloaded 90% of his burden, and suddenly felt like walking like a fly. Normally, even if Chen Daoxian had the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, he would still feel exhausted every time after refining the magic weapon, and it would take at least a few days to recover. Not to mention ordinary refiners. As far as Chen Daoxian knew, even if a first-order high-grade artifact refiner wanted to refine a first-grade low-grade magic weapon, the fastest speed could only make one piece in 7 days. It's not that ordinary craftsmen really need 7 days to make a magic weapon, but after 3 days and 3 nights of continuous crafting, craftsmen need to meditate to restore their true qi and consciousness. It is good to say that infuriating medicines are more common after all, but spiritual consciousness is different. Every medicine that restores spiritual consciousness is expensive, and if you are unlucky, you will not be able to buy them. So in general, it's not bad that an ordinary artifact refiner can refine a first-order low-grade magic weapon in 7 days. Moreover, the frequent refining of the artifact by the artifact master will inevitably delay his own cultivation. You know, for monks, the biggest pain is to delay their own practice. Therefore, the immortal clan and sect in the immortal cultivation world can only use auxiliary treasures such as medicinal pills to make up for the training time delayed by the refining master. This is another huge expense. This is also the reason why the Shoshian family and the sect have the ability to train more refiners, but they often only train refiners who meet their own needs, and then do not continue to train them. Because wanting to make money by refining low-level magic tools by an artifact refiner is simply an unrealistic thing. The profit of low-level magic tools is inherently low, and it takes a lot of resources to train a craftsman, and the consumption of craftsmanship is huge. Therefore, no cultivation force is willing to do this. The consumption here refers not only to the consumption of raw materials such as spiritual ore, but also to invisible consumption, such as the consumption of medicinal herbs for the refiner to restore his true energy and assist his practice. It is almost impossible for a loose cultivator to become an alchemist or an alchemist. First of all, there is no inheritance, and secondly, there is no one to teach, and the most important thing is that the poor scattered practitioners can't even handle the spiritual energy of cultivation, and there is no money left to play such a high-level skill as weapon refining. It is much more reliable for them to learn to be a spiritual planter than this. At least learning to be a spiritual planter will not consume such a large amount of resources. Therefore, this is also the reason why the majority of loose cultivators lack magical tools and have to use other people to eliminate them. However, this situation, it was completely smashed by the cross-generational product of the Rongling furnace. Today, only 5 hours. The newly built Hongyin Feijian factory produced 5 Fijians. That's right, everyone is in a better state than Qin Daoxian expected. So many people work on average for 4 hours each, and there is not a single worker who makes a mistake. It was a good start for Hongyin Feijian factory, which produced 5 Feijian in 1 day. Compared to a common weapon refiner refining a magic weapon in 7 days, Qin Daoxian's production efficiency is exactly 35 times that of the other side. This is the power of industrial water production. Qin Daoxian knew that his current achievements were not even compared to the completely intelligent and automated factories in his previous life, but in this world where alchemy relies entirely on hands and alchemy relies entirely on fire. He is already the world's top productivity representative. Although the instruments produced by their instrument factory are of relatively low grade, and the varieties are very simple. But as far as the current results are concerned, he firmly believes that the direction of development he has chosen is completely correct. Checked all the red shadow flying swords and found that there was no problem. Qin Daoxian's face was full of smiles. Inside the factory, for a whole day, Qin Liangyu solved logistical problems and work schedules and other sundries for everyone almost non-stop. It can be said that Qin Daoxian can cooperate so well with everyone today, and the factory production is so smooth. Qin Liangyu has contributed greatly. Otherwise, no matter which link has a problem, it will delay the entire assembly line, thereby affecting production. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Qin Liangyu approached Qin Daoxian and said, "Young patriarch, you have worked hard." Seeing that the young patriarch personally fought on the front line of production for the development of the clan, Qin Liangyu sincerely admired it. Of course, Qin Daoxian also didn't want to enter the factory after crossing once, even though the factory belonged to the family, and the family was under his control. But now that you're the boss, who wants to work part-time? Qin Daoxian personally went to the front line. That was no way. Who called the entire Qin family to be the only one refining master? Seeing Qin Liangyu sweating profusely, Qin Daoxian shook his head and said with a smile, "It's not hard work. By the way, how are the preparations for the refining equipment tomorrow?" Qin Daoxian asked casually. "It's all ready, just." After finishing speaking, Qin Liangyu looked like he was hesitant to speak again. "If you have something to say, say it directly, don't hesitate. Chen Daoxian frowned, slightly dissatisfied. Hearing this, Chen Liangyu sighed and said, Young Patriarch, now we only have more than 1,800 caddies of red copper ore in our factory warehouse. According to today's consumption, it will be completely consumed in more than a month at most. Saying that, he secretly raised his head and glanced at Chen Daoxian, and seeing that there was no strange color on his face, he felt a little relieved. Ugh, Chen Daoxian sighed, this is also impossible. The family only stores more than 600 caddies of copper ore, and the spirit stone in our clan library is only enough to buy 1,200 caddies of copper ore, so there is a shortage of raw materials. Speaking of this, Chen Daoxian frowned. It is a pity that Guang'an Prefecture does not have a financial loan business, otherwise he would have to borrow a lot of money to put it into production. But this is also a good thing. It proves that our products will be sold to Guang'an in 1 month. When the funds are returned, we will definitely be able to further expand production. After studying under Chen Daoxian for a month, Chen Liangyu not only has a strong immunity to some new terms that he occasionally pops up, but can also roughly guess the meaning of these terms. It has to be said that human adaptability is terrifying. Forget it, let's not talk about that. Chen Daoxian waved his hand, have you recorded today's raw material consumption and Feijian output? Young Patriarch, all the subordinates have written it down. Ah, that's good. Chen Daoxian nodded with satisfaction, our stall is still relatively small now, but one day, the stall will get bigger and bigger, you have to learn to consume all the raw materials, the number of qualified products, the number of waste refining products and other data, all are recorded in detail for future reference. Remember, this matter concerns the interests of the family and must not be taken lightly. Yes, the subordinates will definitely record all the accounts of the factory, and there will be no omissions. Chen Liangyu assured. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian was slightly relieved. Chen Liangyu, who has been in charge of the copper mine for so many years, has never made a mistake. Chen Daoxian is more at ease when he does things. Seeing the smile on Chen Daoxian's face, Chen Liangyu bowed slightly and said, Young Patriarch, today is a happy day for our factory to start construction. I will prepare a banquet in the mansion, and I also invite the young Patriarch to appreciate the light. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian glanced at the other party, nodded and said, then it's annoying. Don't dare to dare. The young Patriarch can visit the cold house, it really makes the cold house shine. Chen Liangyu said with a smile. Chapter 37. Chongping County. Now is Su Shi, which is equivalent to about 7 o'clock in the evening in the previous life. Unlike the Xianqing of Guang'an Prefecture, which is brightly lit all night, although Chongping County has not implemented a curfew, at night, only a few large households have their lights on. Chen Liangji's family is one of them. As a luxury carriage slowly came to a stop in front of a big family, Chen Daoxian got off the carriage under the eyes of everyone. Chen House. Chen Daoxian raised his head, looked at the 2 big characters with dragons flying and phoenix dancing on the rather weathered plaque, nodded and praised, good calligraphy. Hearing Chen Daoxian's praise, Chen Liangji's face suddenly showed a proud look, this is the plaque that my ancestor of the Chen family mentioned in his own hand and presented to my ancestor. Oh. Hearing that it was the handwriting of Chen Dengyuan, the ancestor of the Chen family, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but take a second glance. Squeak. Just as he was admiring the plaque, the door to the Chen residence was suddenly opened. A group of people filed out from the mansion and poured out together. Take a closer look. The leader was a woman in her late 40s, followed by the servants of the Chen family, including maids and servants. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxian remained silent, wondering what he was thinking. But in the eyes of everyone, the young patriarch is an immortal, and it is only natural for immortals to be indifferent and superior. I saw the middle-aged woman at the head, Wei Fu, nodded and said, the people's daughter Chen, I have met the young patriarch. As for the maids and servants behind her, they all knelt on the ground, buried their heads deeply on the ground, and dared not look up. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxuan's face was a little unhappy. How shrewd Chen Liangyu is, even knowing that Chen Daoxian must have misunderstood, he immediately stepped forward and explained softly, "Young patriarch, these maids and servants are not from my Chen clan, but slaves purchased by the old patriarch from Guang'an Mansion." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but think of those serfs with shackles on their feet and carrying grain at the Guang'an Mansion wharf. "You mean, they are all slaves of Izumo?" "Exactly." Chen Liangyu nodded. As if thinking of something, Chen Daoxian asked, "In my Shuanghu Island, are there many servants like this?" "A lot." Chen Liangyu thought for a while. "Our Chen family has purchased 46 maids and 37 servants, and the total number is nearly 100. As far as I know, my Chen family has 3 or 4 such portals." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded clearly. "No wonder I have so many fertile fields in Chen's family, and there are only 177 farmers in the farm, right?" Seeing Chen Daoxian pointing at the servant kneeling on the ground, Chen Liangyu smiled shyly. In his mind, it wasn't a big deal. Indeed, for the current Chen family, a little land acquisition is not a big deal. Even, many Chen clan people are reluctant to cultivate the fields, because the family will give the Chen clan people a minimum living guarantee. That is to say, as long as you are from the Chen clan, even if you don't work, the clan will not let you starve to death on the street. This undoubtedly breeds the laziness of a small part of the Chen family. These drawbacks are all what Chen Daoxian is eager to reform. It's just that the investigation on the family's population, fields, and land has not been completely completed, and Chen Daoxian has been busy with the magic weapon factory for the past month. There is simply no way to manage these chores. But just because he's busy doesn't mean he doesn't care. As a traveler, Chen Daoxian knew in his heart how important a relatively fair distribution system was for a force. Land annexation, whether in ancient times on Earth or in this world of immortal cultivation, is a big cancer. The only difference from the Earth is that there are monks in the world of immortal cultivation, and monks rely on the vast group of mortals. Therefore, once the conflicts of mortals cannot be reconciled, the monks will act as this regulator, forcibly smashing the inherent interest groups of mortals, so that the mortals at the bottom can breathe. But Chen Daoxian did not intend to do so. Because the Qin family is too weak, and he will soon develop the family in great strides, before that, he will definitely cut off the various shortcomings of the family in advance. In other words, weed out the idea of unfair distribution. "Come on, let's go in. Young patriarch, please go first." Chen Liangyu heard the words and immediately made a gesture of please. A group of people quickly gave up a passage and let Chen Daoxian walk in front. When Chen Daoxian passed by, a young man trotted forward and shouted at the middle-aged woman with a face full of joy, "Mother." When the middle-aged woman saw her son, her face was both joyful and distressed. She quickly took out the Shijuan handkerchief, wiped the sweat from Chen Yunsheng's forehead, and said with concern, "You are tired, you are sweating. What is this?" Chen Yunsheng said indifferently, "Hey, why didn't you see the second sister and third brother? They are in the backyard with your second and third mothers, and it is inconvenient for them to come out with distinguished guests today." The middle-aged woman said calmly. Chen Yunsheng is a young man, and he doesn't have the deep scheming of his biological mother. If you ask casually, you don't care. Seeing that Chen Yunsheng still wanted to talk nonsense, the middle-aged woman pushed him, gave him a look, and said, "Don't hurry up and help your father entertain the young patriarch." "Oh." Only then did Chen Yunsheng react. He scratched his head, and said with a smile, "Mother, then I'll go to help father entertain the young patriarch, and I'll greet you later. Go quickly." After speaking, Chen Yunsheng stepped forward quickly and followed behind Chen Liangyu and Chen Daoxian, like a follower. Room. Accompanied by Chen Liangyu and his direct son Chen Yunsheng, the living room was full of laughter. Unconsciously, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but see that Qin Liangyu and his son became more pleasing to the eye. After everyone drank for about half an hour, Qin Daoxian glanced at the sky and said, "It's better, let's go here today, and we will continue to be busy with factory production tomorrow. Hangovers are not a good habit." Hearing this, Qin Liangyu was full of regret, but he still smiled and said, what the young patriarch said. "Bang! You bitch! You gave birth to a bitch, and you dare to bully my daughter, I'll kill you bitch." "I didn't bully her, it was she who grabbed my little wooden man first and scolded me." "Bitch! How dare you talk back? You bastard, don't you care about your bastard?" Except for Qin Yunsheng's biological mother, everyone present here is either a warrior or a monk. Although the quarrel from the backyard was inaudible in the ears of Qin Yunsheng's biological mother, in the ears of Qin Liangyu, Qin Daoxian and others, it was no different from the quarrel in the ears. Qin Daoxian took a sip of his wine silently and did not speak. Seeing this, Qin Liangyi's face was extremely embarrassed, and his heart was even more angry. This wicked woman is so ignorant. Let's see how to clean up you later. Qin Liangyu cursed fiercely in his heart. I thought it was just a temporary backyard quarrel, but I didn't expect the insults to get louder and louder, so that Qin Yunsheng's biological mother, who had been unaware, also heard it. "Young patriarch, the family is unfortunate, it makes you laugh." Qin Liangyi's face was full of embarrassment. Qin Daoxian smiled slightly, but did not reply. After a long while, he moved in his heart and said, let's go over and have a look together." Saying that, he stood up from the table. Just out of curiosity, he swept the backyard with his divine sense, but found something quite interesting. Chapter 38. Chen's Backyard. When Qin Daoxian and his party arrived, there was already a mess in the backyard of Chen's house. In front of you, an 8 or 9-year-old boy was embraced by a young woman in her 20s. The young woman's face was pale, and her pretty face with a little makeup was full of horror. But his hands tightly wrapped around the little boy's body, lest the wicked woman with claws would hurt the child. And the little boy in the young woman's arms looked at the wicked woman with fire-breathing eyes, trying to struggle, but was firmly held down by his mother. The scolding person, that is, the wicked woman, is not bad-looking, but it reveals a bitter and mean look. I saw her with one hand on her waist and one finger at the slumped young woman, all kinds of unpleasant words kept popping out of her mouth. "What slave of Izumo, what a born slut, the child born is also a slut." Anyway, all kinds of ugly and heart-wrenching words were constantly scolded by her. He scolded to the point of excitement that even people in the backyard didn't know. "Why don't you talk? Are you dumb?" Like a victorious general, the wicked woman looked around her servants. Who knew that the next person seemed to have seen some terrifying and inexplicable scene, and they all fell to their knees and called in unison, "Master, Madam." Hearing this sentence, the wicked woman felt a chill down her spine and turned around in embarrassment, only to find that it was the eldest lady who was usually the most fearful and jealous and the angry master. "Old Lord." The wicked woman seemed to change her face in a show, and when she was about to change her snarky appearance to a lovable one, she said coquettishly, "Master, you have to decide for me, these two are bullying my family while I'm not paying attention." Tanger. "You bullshit. I didn't, she was the one who robbed me of the little wooden man." The little boy in the young woman's arms was not convinced, and was about to plead, but his mother tightly covered his mouth. The little boy's eyes were burning with fire, but unfortunately his strength was too small to struggle against her mother at all. I had to stare at the wicked woman with cannibalistic eyes and complain to the wicked person first. Snapped. Who knew that Qin Liangyu, who was in a hurry, could not allow her to argue at all, and immediately slapped his second wife. Under this slap, the entire backyard of Qin Mansion was in chaos. The cry of the little girl and the howl of the wicked woman are endless. Enough! Qin Liangyu shouted and glared at the quarreling people. Intimidated by his power, everyone, including the little girl, dared not cry anymore. The wicked woman was even more unbearable, and she was so frightened that her face turned pale. Seeing that Chen Liangyu was in control of the scene, he bowed to Chen Daoxian and said, "Young Patriarch, this subordinate is really..." "Young Patriarch?" Hearing Chen Liangyi's name, everyone's expressions changed. And Chen Daoxian raised his hand to stop Chen Liangyi's apology. I saw him take a few steps forward, crouch down in front of the young woman, and say, "Can I see this child?" Hearing this, the young woman instinctively hugged the child for a few minutes, but then thinking of the identity of this person, she couldn't help letting go of the child. The little boy broke away from his mother's delicate little hand, took a deep breath and said, "Mother, you are suffocating to death. Your name is Qin Nianqiu, isn't it?" Hearing this, the little boy turned to look at Chen Daoxian and said vigilantly, "Who are you and what is my name?" "It's none of your business. Are you here to bully us too?" As he said that, he opened his small hand and stopped his mother behind him. "I'm here to help you." He shook his head, "Can you come over and let me see?" After hearing this, the little boy looked at his mother with questioning eyes, and after getting a positive response, he came over reluctantly. "What you up to?" Chen Daoxian smiled slightly, but did not speak. Directly caressed the top of the little boy's head with his jade-like right hand. Moment. As Chen Daoxian's dantian infuriated, a ray of light covered the top of the little boy's head. This ray of sunshine is particularly bright at night, even if it is far away, everyone feels a little dazzling. Seeing this glow, Chen Liangyu suddenly remembered the records of the ancient books in the clan. Xiaoguang cover the top, immortal pose. Chen Liangyu never imagined that his son had the appearance of an immortal, a seed of immortality. But then thinking of something, Chen Liangyi's face turned pale again. Really? After Chen Daoxian checked Chen Nianqi's aptitude for spiritual roots, he turned to look at Chen Liangyu and the wicked woman who was slapped in the face by him, and said, "Are you guilty?" Although the wicked woman showed off her might in front of the little boy's mother, she didn't dare to argue in the face of the young patriarch, who was more terrifying than her husband, and immediately fell to her knees and did not dare to speak. Chen Liangyu. Seeing that the wicked woman did not speak, Chen Daoxian turned to Chen Liangyu and said, "Subordinates are here." Chen Liangyu immediately knelt down and lowered his head. What is Article 3 of the Chen clan rules? When Chen Liangyu heard this sentence, before Chen Liangyu spoke, the wicked woman on the side fell to the ground in fright. Chen Liangyu pursed his lips. Suddenly, he stood up abruptly, kicked his second wife with one foot, and scolded, "You slut, I told you to bully people if you don't have to, and make the house uneasy, slut." Chen Liangyu beat and scolded until the other party hugged his legs and begged for mercy. Seeing her like this, Chen Liangyi's heart softened, but then he became ruthless and continued to beat and scold. "Enough." Chen Daoxian said, "Chen Liangyu, let me ask you again, what is the third rule of the Chen clan?" Hearing this, Chen Liangyu slumped to the ground like a deflated ball. His face was ashen as he said, "Anyone of the Chen clan who insults the clan for no reason shall be sentenced to 2 years of hard labor, and whoever insults a mortal with spiritual roots for no reason is a crime, it's crime." "What?" "Shut up." Saying the last 2 words seemed to exhaust all the strength of Chen Liangyi's body. He looked at Chen Daoxian with despair, hoping that he could open up. But Chen Liangyu knew in his heart that as long as a qualified patriarch would definitely implement the clan rules. He always thought that Chen Daoxian was a qualified patriarch. Really? Chen Daoxian pointed at the wicked woman, looked at the little boy, and said, "Tell me, did she bully you?" The little boy was about to speak, but was stopped by his mother. I saw the young woman desperately shook her head at the little boy, and softly pleaded, "Sure, don't." The little boy clenched his teeth, looked at his mother for a while, and the wicked woman with a desperate face for a while, and took a deep breath and said, "She didn't bully me, I was just playing with my sister." Hearing this, the wicked woman only felt that her soul had finally returned to her body, and she fell to the ground. Heard. Everyone present breathed a sigh of relief. Just when everyone thought the matter was over, Qin Daoxian walked up to the wicked woman and said, "Tell me, why did you choose to insult their mother and son tonight? Don't you know that I'm coming to Chen's house as a guest tonight?" Hearing this, Chen Liangyu reacted. Yes. He clearly told her wife that he was going to invite the young patriarch to be a guest at his house today, so that she could prepare for life. How could this kind of thing happen? Unless... He glanced at his wife, whom he had known for many years, and an unbelievable thought popped up. Could it be that all of this was calculated by his own wife behind the scenes? But why? Suddenly, a terrifying thought loomed in his heart, but he couldn't believe it was true. It's you. The second lady is not stupid, she instantly realized who was behind the scenes. I saw her pointing at the eldest lady and said, "It's you, right? It must be you. You are afraid that Nianchu will steal the identity of Yunsheng's direct son, so you want to get rid of him." "No, it's to get rid of the two of us, you so cruel." Hearing this accusation, Chen certainly couldn't accept it. I saw her face pale and said, "Don't spit, you bully other people's mother and son, what's with me? Did I let you bully their mother and son?" Seeing this big play, Chen Daoxuan's face suddenly became frosty. He originally thought that the Qin family had a patriarch like Qin Xianhe who worked hard for the family and did not hesitate to give up the road, and there were also pure clan members like Qin Beiwang who were willing to do their best and die. The Qin family is definitely a family without the slightest dirt. But now it seems that there is darkness that cannot be illuminated everywhere. The key is... Even Qin Daoxian couldn't say a word about what Chen's did. She took full advantage of second lady Chen Liangjia's own jealousy and her mean character. In the words of the previous life, this is a high IQ borrowed knife to kill. He glanced at Qin Liangyu, then at Qin Yunsheng and Chen's wives, and said in an ethereal voice, "Do you still remember my Qin clan's training? Remember?" Seeing that everyone didn't speak, Qin Daoxian got really angry and yelled loudly. "Me." Chen Liangyu knelt on the ground and lowered his head. Seeing this, Qin Yunsheng also knelt down with his father. In the end, everyone in the Qin residence, including the first lady, the second lady, and even Qin Liangjia's youngest daughter, all knelt there. In the end, Qin Liangyu seemed to have a fire burning in his heart, his face flushed red, and the ancient ancestral teachings slowly said from his mouth, "All my blood of the Qin family are from the Qin family. Every blood of my Qin clan is from my Qin clan. Qin Liangyu, tell me, where did the Qin clan come from?" Qin Daoxian stared at him intently, as well as at Qin Shi. Both of them lowered their heads, not daring to look at each other. Qin Nianchu looked at the scene in front of him, and there was a faint fire burning in his eyes. He squeezed his small fists tightly, only to feel a mass of heat in his chest, that was the hot blood of the Qin family, surging. Qin Daoxian walked up to him and said in a voice that could only be heard by him, "Do you like the Qin family like this?" This sentence seems to remind the little boy of a lot of not-so-good memories. He shook his head and said, "I don't like it." "Then let's make it what you like together, okay?" Qin Daoxian lowered his head and just hit Qin Nianka's small eyes. Qin Nianchu seemed to see something different in the eyes of the big brother in front of him. It was something he had been looking forward to for a long time, but had always been unattainable. He nodded uneasily, "Okay." He thought for a while, "But, I also have a request." "What?" "Why don't you be my father?" Qin Daoxian. Chapter 39. Time flies by day. Soon. A month has passed. Due to the discovery of an immortal seedling of the family, Qin Daoxian has been mixed for a while. If it is placed in another family, it is good news to find a cultivator seedling. But the Qin family is a small family with shallow roots after all. There is no spiritual vein in the clan, only one spiritual eye, and it is only enough for Qin Daoxian to practice alone. As such, even if the immortal seedling Qin Daochu was discovered, the Qin family did not have any more spiritual energy to supply him to practice. Inside the cave. After Qin Daoxian instructed Qin Daochu to practice in the mortal realm today, he thought urgently, no matter what, the spiritual veins of the family must be cultivated within this year. Qin Daoxuan's goal is not a wild idea. He had this idea, and it was all the confidence that the explosive production capacity of the Feijian factory in the past month gave him. A month. Not counting the flying swords that failed to be refined due to the improper operation of the workers, Qin Daoxian refined a total of 148 flying swords. On average, about 5 mouthfuls a day. With so many flying swords, even if they were sold at the market price of Guang'an Prefecture, they would still be able to sell 7,400 spirit stones, which would not only recover all the cost of Qin Daoxuan's investment this time, but also make a small profit. You know, it's only a month away. In 1 year, Qin Daoxian would have earned at least 34,000 spirit stones. It takes 3 years to accumulate spiritual stones that can cultivate spiritual veins. However, Qin Daoxian intends to solve the problem of the family's spiritual veins in a year. Obviously, it is not enough to rely on the way of Guang'an Mansion. Think of this. He silently took out a cyan scale from the storage bag. This scale is diamond-shaped, with a faint trace of dark red blood on it. It was the scale of life left by the princess of the merman race, Luo Li, to Qin Daoxian. It's just that it's been 2 months now, and the scales don't seem to react at all. Qin Daoxian had tried to input his infuriating energy 3 times, but all of them fell into disarray. This made Qin Daoxian wonder if the mermaid woman named Luo Li was deceiving him. But think about it carefully, the possibility of the other party deceiving him is infinitely close to 0. Because there is really nothing in Qin Daoxian that is worth deceiving. And trading with him, whether it is for the mermen or the Qin family, is a matter of mutual benefit. Ugh! Sighed. Qin Daoxian no longer thought about it, and immediately put the blue scales into the storage bag. Today's practice begins. Of course. During this period of time, in addition to the explosion in the number of instruments produced by the family's Feijian factory, Qin Daoxuan's improvement in cultivation has far exceeded his expectations. Originally, he thought that it would take him 4 to 5 months or even half a year to break through to the 4th level of qi refining. As a result, after only 2 months of cultivation, he felt that he was on the verge of a breakthrough. Such a terrifying cultivation speed finally let him know why Zhou Mubai was able to successfully establish a foundation at the age of 21. Normally, a monk with the 9th level of qi refining wants to build a foundation, and he must polish his true qi for a long period of time, so that the true qi is so pure that it is impossible to advance, and then he can try to break through the foundation building stage. Of course, this is just one of the most basic conditions for breaking through the foundation establishment period. As for the requirements of foundation building for resources such as spiritual veins and foundation building pills, it has not been included. It is precisely because of the various requirements of cultivators to build foundations, there are only a handful of cultivators who can build foundations in the group of loose cultivators. Basically, they rely on the accumulation of military exploits on the battlefield of Izumo to obtain breakthroughs in resources. Those ordinary loose cultivators who are unwilling to go to the battlefield are not even able to cultivate enough spiritual energy, let alone break through to the foundation establishment stage. In the Dongfu practice room, Qin Daoxuan's eyes were tightly closed, and the pure aura continued to spray out from the water spirit beads. Coupled with the assistance of Qi Gathering Pill, at this moment, Qin Daoxuan's speed of refining spiritual energy is beyond the reach of Tianlingen cultivator. As the pure aura enters the meridians, it is continuously refined and transformed into true Qi, which is stored in the Dantian Qi Si bit by bit. Dantian gas is domestic. True Qi is growing at a speed that is almost visible to the naked eye. Sudden. Chen Daoxian was blessed to the heart. He had the feeling that he broke through the fourth level of qi refining, at this moment. His hunch was right. With the continuous accumulation of true qi in the Dantian qi sea, the total amount of true qi in the Dantian seems to have reached a threshold. Boom! A roar exploded in Chen Daoxian's sea of consciousness. He only felt that his consciousness had suddenly increased a bit, and more than that, the sea of qi in his Dantian had also transformed. When his consciousness returned in the next second, he found that the cyclone in his Dantian qi sea suddenly increased by a circle. Compared to before, his total amount of infuriating energy has grown by at least 50%. Fourth level of qi refining, it's done. Chen Daoxian opened his eyes, his face full of surprise. Calculate carefully. He is only 4 months away from breaking through the third level of qi refining, not even half a year. Compared with the breakthrough from the second level of qi refining to the third level of qi refining, the time he spent not only did not increase, but it was shortened several times. This obviously does not conform to the normal cultivation rules. Under normal circumstances, the further a cultivator practiced, the slower his breakthrough speed would be. That is to say, the breakthrough from the third qi refining layer to the fourth qi refining layer is definitely slower than the breakthrough from the second qi refining layer to the third qi refining layer. But Chen Daoxian broke this rule at this time. Chen Daoxian knew in his heart that it wasn't his outburst of talent that caused him to break the law of cultivation, but the help of the Shui Lingzhu and Qi gathering pill. In the final analysis, it is the credit of the cultivation resources. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but think of those immortal cultivators, and even the core disciples of Qianyuan Jianzong, what kind of cultivation conditions should be. Those who can become the core disciples of Qianyuan Jianzong are all geniuses among geniuses. As far as Chen Daoxian knew, the disciples of Qianyuan sword sect are divided into 3 categories: outer disciples, inner disciples, and direct disciples. I heard that even the lowest level outer disciples have requirements for qualifications, and they have reached the perverted spiritual roots, not to mention all kinds of tests and tempering of Xinqing and perseverance. Therefore, any disciple of Qianyuan sword sect, who is placed in a loose cultivator, is at an invincible level of the same rank. If it didn't have this ability, it would not have dominated the Wangxinghai for 1,000 years. Of course. Although Chen Daoxian knew that he was inferior to the disciples of the Qianyuan sword sect in terms of spiritual roots and resources, there was one point that the Qianyuan sword sect disciple Pai Ma couldn't compare to him. That is comprehension. He has the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic to store his understanding every day, and he has an epiphany every 10 days. Over time, the effect will be terrifying. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help sinking his consciousness into the sea of consciousness space. Know the sea. 10 star dusts are revolving around a golden scripture. 10 star dusts are attracted to each other, but they are deliberately controlled by Chen Daoxian, and they are not allowed to gather together. Perhaps he had just broken through to the fourth level of qi refining, and Chen Daoxian had a vague feeling that perhaps the breakthrough opportunity for wind-chasing sword art was also tonight. Think of this. He no longer suppressed the aggregation of 10 stardust, and allowed them to come together to form a larger stardust, which finally exploded and filled the entire sea of consciousness. Immediately afterwards, Chen Daoxian's consciousness continued to rise, and various insights about wind-chasing sword art continued to flood into his mind. Chen Daoxian was quickly immersed in it, forgetting the passage of time. Chapter 40. After a stick of incense. Chen Daoxian opened his eyes, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Then, a surge of ecstasy overwhelmed him. After careful calculation, it has only been 4 months since he practiced wind-chasing sword art. Even for the kendo geniuses of Qianyuan Jianzong, there are only a handful of people who can reach the realm of Xiaocheng after cultivating the wind-chasing sword art in just 4 months. Not to mention that he had already surpassed the general Deshang realm before Chen Daoxian. But Chen Daoxian has a perverted plug-in of Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, after all. He can accumulate comprehension, and he can have an epiphany every 10 days. Although the time for each epiphany is not long, it is only the time of a stick of incense. But after 4 months, he had a dozen epiphanies. What is this concept? You must know that it took him only 2 epiphanies to cultivate the wind-chasing sword art to the realm of great achievement. After 10 times of epiphany, he finally cultivated the wind-chasing sword art to the perfect state today. Judging from the number of epiphanies, it seems that it is about 5 times more difficult to cultivate the wind-chasing sword art from Deshang to the perfect state than from the entry-level cultivation to the Deshang state. In fact, it is 10 times more difficult, or even 100 times more difficult. Because even if ordinary Qi cultivators spend a lifetime, it is impossible to cultivate it from the great achievement to the consummation realm. After all, there are some things that you can't understand, even if you are not convinced, no matter how much time you spend grinding, you will not understand at all. Otherwise, there would not be so many world-class mathematical problems that could not be solved in the previous life. The next day, Chen Daoxian had just broken through the 4th level of Qi refining, which was still vain, but after a night of practice, it became solid again. Out of the cave, Chen Daoxian saw a small figure standing on the viewing cliff, practicing his sword against the rising sun. Maybe it was not long after practicing martial arts, this little figure danced the sword, still a little jerky, holding the 10-kilogram fine iron long sword in his hand. It seemed even more trembling. Chen Daoxian watched quietly without making a sound. Chen Daoxian knew Chen Daoqi's stubborn character after getting along for a month. Of course, there are pros and cons to this character, and the good part is that people with this character tend to have amazing perseverance and courage. The disadvantage is that it is also likely to fall into a demonic obstacle in the future practice and cannot extricate oneself. Soon, the time for half a stick of incense passed. Chen Daoqiu was so tired and sweaty that he was all over his body, as if he had been fished out of water. Who? I saw him sitting on the edge of the cliff, panting heavily. Chen Daoxian came over at this time and pointed, cross-legged luck, stay in Dantian. Young patriarch. Chen Daoqiu turned his head and saw Chen Daoxian, struggling to get up and salute, but was stopped by Chen Daoxian, happy luck. Yes, young patriarch. Hearing this, Chen Daoqiu adjusted his breathing, sat down with his knees crossed, and luckily adjusted his breath. Seeing that Chen Daoqiu was able to enter the state of meditation proficiently, Chen Daoxian nodded with satisfaction, and then flew out of the wind control technique and flew in the direction of the magic weapon factory. A busy day begins again. Southwest waters of Wangxinghai. The underwater world is about 10,000 miles away from Shuanghu Island. The underwater world of Wanxinghai is different from what Chen Daoxian imagined, and it is also completely different from the underwater world on Earth. Normally, because there is no light on the deep seabed, it will present a dark scene, and the picture can be said to be comparable to the dark space. The seabed of Wangxinghai is different. The underwater world of Wangxinghai is a world of bright stars. Here, if you look up and look up, you will find hundreds of millions of stars suspended in the undersea shady layer tens of thousands of meters high. These hundreds of millions of stars illuminate the entire underwater world of Wangxinghai, allowing countless species to survive and multiply in the underwater world of Wangxinghai. This is also the origin of the name Wanxinghai. Father. The seabed in the southwest waters of Wangxinghai. A mermaid woman with a wound in her left arm and a gap in her right shoulder swam to a mermaid man with a huge gap in her chest, and said sadly, "If we keep fighting like this, even if we put the water if the demon ape's territory is taken down, the clansmen will suffer heavy casualties." The merman woman who spoke was none other than the merman princess, Luoli, whom Chen Daoxian met on the way back. Just looking at her miserable appearance, these days are obviously not very good. Cough cough. Hearing this, the Merman clan chief coughed violently. Zhou Mubai caused me more serious injuries than I thought. With that said, he lowered his head and looked at the wound in front of his chest where the sword qi was raging, and said with a headache, I have to suppress this sword qi with force at all times, otherwise, the injury will only get heavier. Speaking of this, the head of the Merman clan looked gloomy, but, if I don't join the war, you can't deal with the leader of the water demon ape. Hearing this, Luoli was silent. She knew that what her father said was the truth. Without her father, a high-level mercenary in the late Third Order stage, they would not be able to help the Water Demon Ape clan just by virtue of their highest cultivation level, which is only equivalent to the mere people of the foundation building stage of the human race. Because the leader of the Water Demon Ape clan entrenched on the Demon Ape Mountain is a mid-tier 3 existence. The other party has never done anything to the low-level mere people of the mere people, and is completely afraid of her father, the leader of the mere people of the late Third Order. However, the other party did not know that his father suffered such a serious injury. Otherwise, now it would not be the Merman clan pressing the Water Demon Ape clan to fight, but the opposite situation. Hateful. Seeing his severely injured father, Luoli felt for the first time that he was so incompetent that he couldn't hold up a sky for the Merman. Father, why don't we stop attacking the Demon Monkey Mountain and change the territory again? Seemingly seeing the annoyance in Luoli's eyes, the Merman clan chief finally made a decision in his heart. He stroked Luoli's hair and smiled slightly. Silly boy, we have been searching for so long in the bottom of the sea, where are we? Is there a more suitable territory for my mere people to thrive than the Mountain of Demons? Hearing this, Luoli was silent. She knew that what her father said was right. The competition among the various races in the underwater world was more cruel and naked than the competition in the human world. 3 days later, I will face off against the leader of the water demon ape and kill this beast. The patriarch of the Merman clan said loudly. But, father, your injury. It's okay, a mid-tier 3rd-level water demon ape leader is not in my eyes. The patriarch of the Merman clan was arrogant, but when he looked at Luoli, there was a faint hint of reluctance. In the end, this reluctance was thrown away by him and turned into a firm color. 3 days later, we will launch a general attack on the Water Demon Ape clan in Demon Ape Mountain. Hearing this, Luoli nodded excitedly, but immediately seemed to think of something. By the way, father, didn't we agree to cooperate with the Chen family on the Shuanghu Island? Why not buy a batch of weapons from them to enhance the strength of the clan? With the clansmen with weapons, their strength will definitely increase a lot. As if thinking of Chen Daoxuan's flying snow sword, Luoli said excitedly. Originally, it was because of the water demon ape leader that the mere people were all tentative attacks, but now that they have launched a general attack, they must put all their chips on the table. A weapon that can enhance the strength of the tribe is obviously a very important bargaining chip. Hearing this, the Merman clan chief thought for a while, then nodded and said, okay, I'll leave this matter to you. Obviously, he also felt that the magical weapon's increase in the strength of the tribe was extraordinary, and it would definitely be of great help to the next battle. Chapter 41. 5 days later. Hongyin Feijian Factory. Chen Liangyu approached Chen Daoxian with a worried expression. Young patriarch, the spiritual ore in the warehouse is only enough for the factory to produce for 1 day. Running out so soon? Call. Chen Daoxian raised his head, exhaled a breath of turbid breath, and said, I already know about this matter, and I will go to Guang'an House in person the day after tomorrow to sell this batch of flying swords. As he said that, he patted Chen Liangyu on the shoulder. After I leave, the Hongyin Feijian factory will be handed over to you. Hearing this, Chen Liangyu said solemnly, this subordinate will definitely live up to the heavy trust. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded with satisfaction, and was about to encourage him a few more words when he suddenly noticed a change, and immediately waved his hand and said, go and do it first. Subordinates retire. I watched Chen Liangyu leave. Qin Daoxian took out a cyan scale from the storage bag. I saw that at this moment, the red light flickered on the cyan scales, exuding the slightest warmth. Qin Daoxian immediately injected a stream of true qi into the blue scales according to the method originally explained by Luo Li, and immediately sank his consciousness into it. Next second, a message poured into Qin Daoxian's mind. 400 miles away. Sequoia Island. Qin Daoxian raised his head and looked to the east of Shuanghu Island. According to the message from Luo Li, she seems to want to trade with Qin Daoxian on Sequoia Island. Sequoia Island is a large desert island near Shuanghu Island, only about 400 miles away from Shuanghu Island. It's just that compared to Shuanghu Island, the cultivation resources on Sequoia Island are even poorer. At the beginning of Shuanghu Island, there was still a copper ore vein and some spiritual eyes for monks to practice. Sequoia Island has neither mineral resources such as spiritual ore, nor spiritual energy resources such as spiritual eyes, except that the island is covered with a kind of cedar tree called red cedar. As for a higher resource such as the spiritual veins, don't even think about it. This is a completely deserted island. Except that the island is larger than Shuanghu Island, it is almost useless for monks. Not to mention the cultivator family, even the scattered cultivators are reluctant to choose such a place for a foothold. In fact, it is near the waters of Shuanghu Island. There are still a lot of island groups, but there are almost no islands that can have cultivation resources. At least according to the ancient records of the Qin family, in the thousands of miles of sea near here, except for Shuanghu Island, which has a few spiritual eyes, the other islands are basically desert islands, and they don't even have spiritual eyes. Of course. It is also possible that there are so many spiritual eyes in some hidden place on these islands, but they have not been discovered. Anyway. Although there are many islands in the waters around Shuanghu Island, there are very few monks. It seems that in addition to the Qin family on Shuanghu Island, there is only one place called Fenggu Island, where a loose cultivator with the 5th level of qi refining stops. Qin Daoxian was overjoyed when he received Luo Li's message. Compared with going to Guang'an Prefecture to sell flying swords to loose cultivators, trading with the Mer people is obviously more profitable. Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture. Even if the price of Hongyin Feijian is high, it is estimated that it will be difficult to exceed 100 spirit stones. And the price offered by the sharks is 5 times that of 100 spirit stones. From the point of view of interests, it is an obvious thing to choose whom to trade with. Qin Daoxian has been thinking about when the Mer people will come to trade with him for a long time, but he did not expect to wait for more than 2 months before the news came. Organize your thoughts. Qin Daoxian counted the 178 flying swords in the storage bag, and when he even used the wind control technique, he flew alone in the direction of Sequoia Island. It is different from the journey of nearly 100,000 miles to go to Guang'an. Sequoia Island is only 400 miles away from Shuanghu Island. This distance, with Qin Daoxian's 4th level qi refining level, can easily fly over. Sequoia Island. Looking down from the sky, Sequoia Island is completely shrouded in fiery red. Due to this obvious feature, even when he first came to this island, Qin Daoxian discovered it in the nearby waters at a glance. Descend from the sky and land on the cliff of the island. Qin Daoxian took out the blue scales again and injected a burst of infuriating energy. Then, another message came over. Qin Daoxian identified the direction and flew towards the north of the island. The sea north of Sequoia Island. Led by Luo Li, a group of sharks lurked in the reefs hundreds of meters deep. If you look closely, you will find that almost all of these sharks hold a huge scallop in their hands, and they can see overflowing aura from the cracks of the scallops. Obviously, these scallops contain all the spiritual stones that the Mer people are ready to use for trading. His Royal Highness, why hasn't he come yet? In the merman group, a male merman with bronzed muscles and knots all over his body murmured. Don't worry, just wait. Although Luo Li was also uneasy, he patiently comforted his subordinates. Hearing the words of Her Royal Highness the Princess, everyone continued to wait silently. Coming. Suddenly, a surprise flashed across Luo Li's pretty face. Go, let's go up. Luo Li gave an order and swam to the sea first. The Mer people are extremely fast in the sea. In just a few breaths, the group of sharks swam to the sea. As soon as Luo Li swam out of the sea, she saw Chen Daoxian standing in the sky. She cautiously used her divine sense to probe the four directions. Luo Li breathed a sigh of relief when he found that there was no one around except Chen Daoxian. Human cultivator, you are so courageous that you dare to come alone. Are you not afraid that we will kill you and swallow your weapon? Seeing that Chen Daoxian was all alone under the gaze of the merman people, he was so calm, and Luo Li felt uncomfortable for a while. If it was the merman who was so surrounded by a group of human monks, he was shivering with fright for a long time. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian smiled. I know that the Mer people are the most honest, and I am willing to come alone, and it is precisely because of the integrity of the Mer people. Besides, the transaction between you and me is a matter of mutual benefit. Why do you want to harm me? It's not that you plan to trade with my clan this time, right? After all, the magic weapon has a service life. You live in the deep sea for a long time, and the service life of the magic weapon may be shorter. Will the Mer people give up long-term interests for the sake of coveting this mere hundreds of flying swords? So why should I be afraid? Luo Li originally wanted to overwhelm the other party in terms of momentum, but without thinking about Chen Daoxian's 3 or 2 words, she easily disintegrated the momentum she had finally built up. Looking at Chen Daoxian with a smile on his face, Luo Li opened his mouth and finally had to say something depressing. As expected of a human cultivator, he is really eloquent. Thank you Miss Luo for the compliment. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands, but let's make a deal as soon as possible, so that my 2 clans can feel at ease with each other. Hearing Chen Daoxian mentioning the transaction, Luo Li immediately cast aside his little depression and said excitedly, how many weapons have you brought with you on this trip? Chen Daoxian did not speak, and directly took out more than 100 flying swords from the storage bag. Immediately, the sea is full of light. When the people of the Merman clan saw the sharp flying swords in front of them, one by one, their eyes were red. Chapter 42. Seeing the clansmen look like they had never seen the world before, Luo Li felt that she couldn't hold her head up even more in front of Chen Daoxian. Cough cough. She couldn't help coughing in a low voice, but the simple and honest mermaid clansmen didn't care to speculate on the thoughts of Her Royal Highness the Princess. All they were thinking about at the moment were the weapons in front of them. His Royal Highness, if we can have these weapons, the clansmen will not know how many casualties they would have to avoid in the battle with the demon clan. A male merman took a flying sword, injected a demon power, and muttered. Hearing this, Luo Li also became hot in her heart. She looked at Chen Daoxian and said, Human cultivator, did you build this weapon? Yeah, this is too little, it's not enough points at all. Yeah, too little. The other mermaids chimed in. Forgive Miss Luo, the transaction time you proposed is really too short. It's only a mere 2 months. We don't have enough time for either the raw materials of spiritual ore or the refining of magic weapons, so that's all for now. Chen Daoxian shook his head and said regretfully. Spirit ore? Luo Li seemed to remember something, took a piece of radiant ore from a subordinate merman, and said, Is the spiritual ore in your mouth this kind of thing? Right. When Chen Daoxian saw the piece of spiritual ore in Luo Li's hand, his heart jumped fiercely. The underwater world of the Wangxinghai is too rich. It is a pity that the human race is a terrestrial race and cannot survive in the deep sea at all. Otherwise, what would Qianyuan Jianzong need to attack Izumo? The underwater world of Wangxinghai has long been penetrated. Seeing the spiritual ore in Luo Li's hands, Chen Daoxian couldn't help feeling the urge to go to the underwater world of Wangxinghai to find out. But when he thought of going to the deep-sea world, he had to at least cultivate the second-order water escape technique to the realm of Deshang, so he died. It is not easy to cultivate the second-order water escape technique to the realm of great achievement, which means that the monk must at least reach the foundation building stage, and he must be a senior foundation building monk, not the kind that has just broken through. The monks can only practice various escape techniques when they reach the foundation building stage. At that time, the cultivator's flying speed will skyrocket by a large amount. Familiar escaping techniques such as escape the light, transforming the rainbow, and flying with the sword are all skills that can only be used by the foundation establishment cultivator. Ordinary chi-refining cultivators can only walk against the wind, and the speed is more than 10 times slower than that of foundation building cultivators. Luo Li was not stupid. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's gleaming eyes, she knew that the spiritual ore in her hand was of extraordinary value. She moved slightly in her heart and said, "If you trade this kind of spiritual ore with your Chen family, what price can you make?" The market price of second-order spiritual ores in Guang'an Prefecture is generally more than 10 times that of first-order spiritual ores. The Guishui adamantium in Luo Li's hands is the most expensive among the second-order spiritual ores. 1. Its price is several times that of ordinary second-order spiritual ore. According to Chen Daoxuan's knowledge, the price of Guishui fine gold is about 150 spirit stones per pound in the Guang'an Prefecture spirit or market. And often there is no market for the price, so you need to order in advance with the seller who sells this kind of spirit ore, or auction it at the auction house. Although the reserves of second-order spiritual ore in Wangxinghai and Xianyunsu are still very rich, they are almost controlled by sects and big immortals, and it is difficult for small families and loose cultivators to buy them. This situation is even worse in Guang'an Prefecture. As far as Chen Daoxian knew, only a few big families, such as the Zhou family, the Yang family, and the Wu family, had the second-order spiritual ore veins in their hands. This kind of resource, even the general newly promoted foundation family does not have. In Guang'an Prefecture, the birth of one or two foundation building cultivators from a small family or a group of scattered cultivators is not a big deal at all. After all, many small family cultivators and loose cultivators, relying on their military exploits in the Izumo country, are lucky enough to obtain enough resources to attack the foundation. But it is not so easy to become a foundation-building family that has been established by the foundation-building cultivators from generation to generation. The inheritance of family exercises, spiritual veins above the second rank, various cherished resources, lucrative family industries, huge family population size and other conditions are indispensable. Of course, the above-mentioned family backgrounds basically have nothing to do with the Chen family on Shuanghu Island. If there is one thing the Chen family can barely meet the standard, it is a lucrative family business. Although Chen Daoxuan's magic tool factory outside Chongping County does not seem to be large enough at present, in terms of potential, it is definitely worthy of the word rich. Seeing that Chen Daoxian did not speak, Luo Li couldn't help but leaned closer and asked, "Human monk, what is the price of this spiritual ore?" Perhaps because the distance was a little closer, Chen Daoxian could actually smell a faint fragrance emanating from Luo Li's body. Hearing Luo Li's questioning, Chen Daoxian came back to his senses and cupped his hands. "Sorry, Miss Luo Li, I really didn't expect you to come up with such precious spiritual ore, and I lost my temper for a while." After a pause, he continued, "This kind of spiritual ore in your hand is the second-order spiritual or Guishui fine gold, and its price is about 100 spiritual stones per kilogram. This piece in your hand." Chen Daoxian took the Guishui fine gold ore in Luo Li's hand, swayed the weight, and said, "This piece of Guishui fine gold is not light, it weighs about 10 pounds. Hearing this, Luo Li's eyes lit up. "You mean, this piece of spiritual ore can buy 2 of these weapons?" She pointed to the red shadow flying sword and said in surprise. "That's right." Chen Daoxian nodded. Hearing this answer, Luo Li was full of joy. The piece of spiritual ore in her hand was mined by the Mer people from a vein on the Demon Ape Mountain. It's just that the sharks were driven out of the mine by the water demon ape before they had mined much. Although Luo Li kept saying that the flying swords made by Chen Daoxian were cheap, but in fact, they didn't have many spirit stones in stock. The reason why they were so embarrassed was because the mermen hurriedly evacuated from the waters near Lingbei Island, and there were not many spiritual stones with them at all. After all, for the Mer people, the spirit stone has little effect. Although their Mer people also need to use spiritual energy to practice, the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone is not even a drop in the bucket compared to the huge spiritual energy required for the Mer people to practice. Naturally, the mermen will not bring a lot of this useless waste in the process of migrating their clan. The only spiritual stones left in the hands of the mermen are the foresight patriarchs of the Mer people. Knowing that the spiritual stones seem to be very important to the human race, they forced the tribe to carry some of them. Right now, the people of the Mer people are stroking the weapons in their hands, and they can't help but be grateful for the great vision of the patriarch. Chen Daoxian looked at Luo Li's pretty face blushing and looked very excited, and pondered, "Miss Luo, I have a little suggestion for the cooperation between our two races." Luo Li was happy at this moment, raised her little hand as bright and clean as jade, and said, "Tell me. I don't know much about the deep sea world, and the mermen don't seem to know much about my human world. Why don't I give the nobles a copy of my human world's various treasures of minerals and elixir? If you find something in the deep sea world, you can trade with our family. Of course, the specific price can be negotiated between us when the time comes. In short, we won't let you Mer people suffer." Luo Li seemed to have a good impression of Chen Daoxian. She smiled and said, "Where's the picture book?" Chen Daoxian took out a jade slip from the storage bag and handed it over. Luo Li took the jade slip and stuffed it directly under the two scallops on her chest. Chen Daoxian turned his head slightly when he saw it. Luo Li didn't care. She clapped her hands and said, "Okay." "Well," Chen Daoxian said with a smile, "in that case, let's count your weapons." "It's just 128 weapons, there's no need to count them," Luo Li pouted. "You're afraid that my merman will deceive you, and you want to count the spirit stones, right?" Luo Li said and waved his little hand. I saw that the sharks lifted up the huge scallops and opened them, and Chen Daoxian still counted the spiritual stones inside. Chen Daoxian's consciousness swept away slightly, and said cheerfully, "Miss Luo misunderstood, how can I doubt the integrity of the Mer people?" After he finished speaking, he rolled up his sleeves, lifted his true qi, and put all the spirit stones into the storage bag until the storage bag was full. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.